Okay. What is all that?
It might either be Joan or Mary, since the rest of us are on mute, I think.
I just talked to John not too long ago, so I don't see him on the meeting yet. So hopefully he'll be showing up soon.
Yeah, I can't get the video working for some reason.
Well, it's 7 o'clock. If Mary,
John, wait, John, are you under user?
No, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm unmuted, but the video will not work. I restarted it 2 or 3 times and just
Okay.
says it won't work for some
But
reason.
we see someone with the name user. Is that you?
that's John. Yeah,
Pardon?
that is John. We see something called user, and that's you. Yeah.
Yeah, we had that issue a while ago, but it did come in later on in the meeting, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
We hear you there, John. Okay, I'll call the October 21st, 2020 Franklin Town Board of Supervisors meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. In attendance to the room, Chairman McVeigh, Vice Chair Dave Gerstenhaber, Supervisors Morris, Auerbach, and Day, and also in attendance are Solicitor Mark Thompson. Are you there, Mark? Can't see you. Can we see Mark? Yeah. No? Yes, okay. All right, Mark Thompson, Township Manager, Joe McCall, Assistant Township Manager, Jeff Eastburn, Secretary, Mary Okamola.
Hey, Mary, you're not coming through the headphones. So I don't know if that's still muted. Okay. You might be on mute on your headphones.
Am I coming through now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. The next item is public comment. This public comment is for anything relating to items on tonight's agenda. The last public comment is for items not on tonight's agenda. It's important to state clearly from the tape so that your comments can be reflected accurately. Please state whether you are a township resident or a township taxpayer. If you're using YouTube, you must type in your name and address before your comment will be recognized. If you do not identify yourself, your comments will not be reflected in the minutes. All right, any public comment? Nope. All right, then we'll Nancy,
Nancy, will move on to you about the minutes.
Yep, happy to do so. I make a motion for the board to approve the September 16th minutes, seconded by,
I'll second that.
okay, that was Dave.
Yes.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Yay.
All right.
Accomplishment.
Donna, you're up next.
You're on mute, Donna.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. I make a motion that the board approve the September 2020 Treasurer's Report, which includes the following disbursements. The general fund with disbursements and transfers of $156,959.54. The Park and Recreation Fund with disbursements of $11,847.75. The Open Space Fund with disbursements of $6,330.74. The Capital Reserve Fund with disbursements of $36,167.98. The Highway Aid Fund with disbursements of $77,074.25. The Emergency Service Fund with a disbursement of $43,387.29. And the Fire Hydrant Fund with disbursements of $580.80, leaving a balance in all funds totaling $1,026,316.56. Can I have a second for that?
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Nancy.
Nancy.
Any discussion? Okay, I'm not seeing any. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion moves 5-0. Thank you.
Okay. The zoning officer report in the month of September 8th, 8 permits were issued. $6,730.56 in building fees and $1,850 in miscellaneous fees were collected. No recreation, open space, or impact fees were collected. 24 inspections were performed. There were 4 zoning issues reported.
So, Joan, can you update us on the zoning issues?
Yes. 3327 Appleton Road, that's the house that is before the HARB with a demolition by neglect request. And they have just sent in some additional information, which I forwarded on to Mark that he has to review. They're trying to get their lot line adjustment plan recorded. So the next one, the 434 Churchill Road, it's the container has been moved off of the Banffshire property. 1833 London Road, that property has been resold, and Jeff is reaching out to the new owners regarding the grass situation.
Joan, do you know if it's sold to like a company or to like a family?
To a company.
Oh, to a company, okay.
For Duncan Lane, there's still an issue with the bamboo, but we haven't had any complaints from the residents. So they're still working on it.
Thank you.
All right. John?
The PC did not hold a meeting in October.
Sorry. All you get.
Okay, the HARB Historical Commission Chairman Legacy will report on the October meeting and annual report. Paul, I see you're somewhere.
Yes. Thank you, Nancy. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So the HARB had planned to meet on October 6th. We were to review an application for a certificate of appropriateness for a demolition permit for 3327 Appleton Road. At practically the last minute, the owner sought a continuance to November. And because that was the only item on our agenda, we canceled our meeting. We will now be meeting on November 10th, when that will again be on our agenda. And we hope to have Solicitor Thompson and Zoning Officer Vogels in attendance, in addition to the regular HARB members. We will also have the Historical Commission members present, and we will not cancel that meeting if the application for a demolition permit is again continued, because we do have to have at least one quarterly meeting, and we will at least take care of that. Finally, you all received, I believe, the annual report, which is a combined report of the HARB and Historical Commission. And I am here to answer any questions, should there be any, concerning that report. No questions?
Nope.
No? Okay, then you can move on and ignore me for the rest of the evening.
Never.
All right, Donna, you're up.
Okay, great. So the Park Recreation and Open Space Board Chairman Sachs will provide a brief update of the PRO's October 7th meeting. So are you with us, Chairman Sachs?
He's here, but Paul is.
Oh, okay, so Paul will provide the update.
I'll be providing it, Jim German.
Yeah, Jim German's going to give it.
Oh, hi, Jim. Good, thank you.
Actually, a very productive meeting. We had a couple guest speakers. The first of which was a consulting company, ARRO Consulting, who stepped forward. He's associated with one of our committee members and has volunteered to help us draft and submit grants. Currently, there's 8 or 9 different grants available out there that we could possibly utilize for trail systems. So we're going to look into that and see what we can do moving forward for attaining some grants. We did question him about his fees. He said he would roll them into the grant process itself. So basically, we'd have a professional writing grants for us that should not cost us anything. Some of these grants are 85-15, 50-50. So we're still investigating to see what we can do moving forward, but we're trying to see if we can come up with some additional funding out there other than taxpayer based in the township. This individual also manages and works with a foundation. And regarding our healing gardens there, he's offered to make a $2,500 donation to assist us with upgrading the healing gardens there, and also contribute to a $750 yearly maintenance donation for up to 5 years. The only thing that he asks is that we are allowed to put a memorial plaque there in the name of this foundation, a Nancy D. Davidson. And so we're looking further into that and understand what we're going to do with the healing gardens. But $2,500, we're not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. I think it's a good thing how he presented it. Really, other than the memorial plaque, appears not to be any strings attached to it. As we investigate it further, we'll pass it on to the full board and let you guys know what we're up to. And talking with the Memorial Garden, we're looking at utilizing a program out of University of Delaware to replant that area with flowers, hopefully low maintenance type related stuff. We're still investigating and coming up with a plan for that, but that's key for us starting springtime next year to upgrade that area in there around the healing garden, since it's currently all tore apart. We also had a presentation from Natural Lands Trusts just explaining the open space, care for nature, connect people with nature, and the different type of easements that are out there, whether they're agricultural, conservation, or other. So it was a good thing. I'm sure Paul can add a little bit. I'm going to have him speak a little bit towards the end of my talk, if you have any other questions. Natural Lands also talked about grants, and so it was good because we had someone volunteer grants, and then Natural Lands talked about grants. So hopefully we can tie that all together moving forward and get us some extra money here to do some projects in the township. And just give me a second here. I'm just reading through my notes. The key part, Crossing Park bike trails, they're moving forward. Has to be work. The work has been ongoing. Currently, there's about a 2.3 mile loop around Crossing Park right now, and that's progressing. There is some other work. There's a small bridge that needs to be built, but it's slowly progressing. We had a individual offer to donate to the township at a spot still to be determined in Crossing Park to put in a small bike repair station where individuals can sit their bike on this rack, which is rather small in nature, but gets it off the ground so they can make repairs while they're out there in the field. It's just something that will help the community, and the board thinks it's a good idea and a good option to add to the park at this time, since we're looking at installing these bike trails. Also looking at developing some more trail signage for the park for both the new bike trails and the existing trails, and installing and having some trail maps created and put up at the main building in the park. Going back to grants, there's currently a PICO green grant out there. We're looking into creating that paperwork and submitting that. Paul Overton, actually, we think that the good project right now is the Banffshire Bridge project, where we could get some money from PICO to help offset the cost of the township. And again, Paul has a few more details on that as he's been working it and pulling that package together. Crossing Park signage, looks like we're moving forward to get some signs put out on 896 and over on Good Hope Road to direct people into the park, since some people, if they don't know it's there, end up going past the park. So we're working with PennDOT to make sure we place the signs in the right spots, but things appear to be progressing there fairly well. Just looking at my notes here, catching up here. Should have highlighted a little bit better.
Just a question. So I'm not saying that these are not good ideas, but will you come to the board to ask for the money? Like for the signage, you're going to need money from the township, right? So
that there's working with Jeff. He said there's money in the road project. It's less than $200 to get the signs installed. Very, very low cost to signs.
Yeah, so I'm more into process. So I'm just I think it's a great idea. If we had it, I would vote yes for it. But I would think that you guys would just make a proposal to the board, say we propose or ask for X amount of dollars, and then we vote on it, and then it's in the record that it was done. That's my understanding of how it should happen.
Okay, that's not a problem. I thought Jeff had covered it from his side, so we'll do that. That's not an issue. Once we finalize everything, you have that exact cost. We're still breaking it down, figuring out the exact size of the signs we want that aren't too cumbersome, but are readable as you're driving down the road. And not an eyesore.
I'd just like to comment on that. It is a very minimal amount, Donna, and it is a road sign, so we did take that out of the traffic and sign budget. As Jim said, it's a couple $100 for the road signs. They will be coming forward with other projects and seeking approval for that.
Maybe we should. So I'm fine with. I mean, maybe we as a board, not the second, should discuss, You know, is there a limit, is there a certain number? Or if you, I mean, I don't know, Joan, like I said, I'm totally in agreement with it. I think it's a good idea. I'd be for it. I just, maybe turn to Mary. Mary, is this something it's something that's a couple $100, we just say, Joan, take care of it, not an issue, or do you have any thoughts on how you may want to handle the request from the PRO?
Well, if Joan is saying that it's coming out of the sign budget, it really won't be out of the pro budget. But I would say any money that the pro wants to spend, if they just present it to us, and then we can keep a record of it for you.
Oh, yeah, it's like that. Like I said, in talking with Jeff, he said it would be covered out of the sign budget. So that's why we haven't presented anything forward. But again, with these grants we're looking at, once we collect it and figure out what would like to do, we will present all that to the board. Perfect. And get your thumbs up or thumbs down on the process.
Perfect.
So
just reaffirming Donna's point of process. I think since these committees are getting started, I think we really need to approve the spending in the board meeting. It's really part of a process, and they shouldn't be working independently at a board. So I support Donna's position.
Understand. Like I said, we're all getting our feet wet on this and understanding the process. So, again, with the healing gardens, we're still collecting the data to understand what we're going to do with that moving forward. But you said possibility of a $2,500 donation. University of Delaware looks like they may donate their time and materials too. So we'll see how that progresses. And you said once we have a formal package put together, we will be presenting it.
Hey, Jim, I think you need to be on our road committee. You have money coming at you from everywhere.
Fix it, pave it.
That's right.
I would like to just clear one other issue up. What we have been doing is doing the normal maintenance and mowing and everything, which we have always done. So that does not, is my understanding, have to go before the board because that's not actually something that the pro is submitting.
Correct.
So just so everyone's clear on that.
Correct. Yeah, all that is already taken care of. We will be presenting some possible budget details for next year later on in this conversation. Just in general care and maintenance to the park, the Franklin Sportsman Association spent some time over there over the last month, trimming back completely around the park, all the overhangs. So anybody comes in, mows the grass and or mows the field, the farmers, they won't get whacked in the face now from branches and other things sticking out into the field. So it's an easy mow. FSA also spent 2 Saturdays over there cleaning up and painting the playground equipment, the monkey bars, the swing sets, everything. Removed all the surface rust, painted up. It looks really good over there right now. The little spring rides, they painted them up. So a big thanks to the Franklin Sportsman Association for doing that. We also had some citizens from the community working along with Paul Overton. They spent about 24 hours over in Banffshire over the last month or so, cleaning trails, picking up trash, really making the place shine over there. Also had some incident earlier this week on Monday, the Yellow Trail at Banffshire had a tree down across the trail. Paul, along with the other volunteers from the community, helped saw it up and open up that trail. Over the weekend, Creek Road area somewhere along there, I'm not sure exact spots. It looks like somebody had a party, dumped a bunch of trash. Paul Overton was down there, had some help cleaning up that trash. So even though that's not quite Creek Road Parks and Open Space, members of the community are out there keeping our community clean. And also on the tennis court right now, we're working with Jeff and Paul's also working with him to get proposals on repairing and or repaving the tennis courts at Crossan. Right now, the one end of the one court has a bunch of cracks and the surface is splitting. So we're trying to get ahead of that, maybe reduce the impact and cost if we can get it repaired or taken care of earlier rather than later when there's more damage to the surrounding area. New business before the board. I'm sorry. The boardwalk at Crossing, we're still working to try to get that straightened out down on the lower part. That was the Eagle Scout project here a year ago. The storms earlier in August washed those boards away. So we're trying to work with the scout troop that had that Eagle come back out and hopefully relay those boards for us and or elevate it and make it a better, safer area down there in the lower part of the park. New business, Historical Commission, meeting with Friends of the White Clay. It's understood that there may be some openings on the Friends of the White Clay board coming up, and we're looking at, it might be a good idea to have a representative or two, I'm not sure the exact number of openings, from Franklin Township get on that, since some of the white clay goes through our township, and along with this new acquisition down there, the Strawbridge property, it might be a good idea. So we have a voice on that board and can help provide some direction of what's done here in our township with those parked areas and along the white clay. As we get more information on that, we'll be passing it on to the Board of Supervisors to share the township. Website. That's it from a high level. And Paul, please feel free to add anything if I missed it. But I'm going to have Paul Overton speak a little bit about his Banffshire Bridge project, where we are and the plans going forward.
Thanks, Jim. You did a good job updating. I don't have anything to add. You already mentioned that I'm applying for the Pico Green Region grant. It's a 50-50 matching grant. And if the board would please consider, I've put forward a referendum to have the board review to state to the Pico Green Region Grant Committee that you would provide the other half of the funding if they award the 50%. So we need a statement from the board agreeing to that. Now, I mean, you've already approved 100%, but that doesn't, that wasn't a motion, so that I can't send them that. So they have a proposed motion that I've given to Joan. If you guys, I think you'll have it on your agenda later.
Paul,
Yes,
can you just give us a little background on I mean, just briefly, the background on this? What's the intent of PICO I'll just turn to you. Just give me a couple sentences. What's their intent with these grants?
Sure. PICO is trying to just support the community, and it's all focused on open space preservation and getting people outdoors, parks and recreation. That's why it's called the Green Region Grant Program. And it's administered by the Natural Lands, used to be Natural Lands Trust, or just Natural Lands now. And so we have applied for and been awarded this grant several times in the past. That was one of the grants we got to help buy the Goodwin parcel, the small 19-acre parcel there on the corner of Goodwin. And I believe it was also part of the Keene preservation. And I think we got one other in the past, but I'm sorry, I don't remember what it was. So we've been successful with them several times. Their limit is $10,000. So they give out, I think, $100,000 or $150,000 a year in $10,000 maximum. So they try to spread it out over the county, over the Pico area. And so it's 50%. So that means the biggest you could have is a $20,000 project, they'll give you 10. But they give out a lot of little stuff, like $1,000 for new soccer goals or something. They do a lot of that little stuff too. And I think this bridge would score very well because it's a trail program, and the trail connects municipalities. So this trail is part of the county trail plan that goes from White Clay Creek State Park all the way up to West Grove. So of course the trail is not all in place, but that's the route it's taking. So I'm hopeful it'll score well. You cannot apply for any past expenses. So all the engineering and permitting money we've spent, you can't apply for that, but you can apply for anything after October 31st, which is the grant deadline.
Great. No, it's a good find. I'm very much in support of it, so I look forward to voting for that motion when it comes before the board. I know it's in our book, but there's an order to these things, so, nice job.
Thank you. All I need, I have everything on their website. You have to submit electronically this year, of course, but everything is on the website and documented. The only thing remaining is your resolution.
All right.
That's it.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
All right, and next item of business, Nan Latimer will report on the September 29th comprehensive plan meeting and the preliminary survey results.
Hello, good evening. Joan, do you want to put on so I can put up the, is it ready? Am I there?
Yeah, yes.
Hold on one sec. Oh. Can you see it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, this is, so I want to go over the survey. The results are in, and I'm hopeful that by the end of the talk that the board will agree to put it on the website. I'm going to ask you to keep your comments to the end because I just want to get through the survey. I don't want to be here all night. I'm sure you all don't as well. And at the end of the survey, you can make your comments as you wish. So this is from Chester County Planning. The survey was done through SurveyMonkey, and this is how they actually tracked who was responding and made sure that there were no gross infractions on people doing many surveys. They've done it many times this way. As you can see, they did the IP addresses. They put it in a spreadsheet. They also monitored how long it took to complete. So somebody couldn't sit there and just keep doing it over and over and over again. There was a spike in survey responses, which they say 914. There might have been one there, but there definitely was one for the newsletter. We got 50 to 60 responses after people received the newsletter. So Donna and Mary, thank you very much for that. People are reading your newsletter, which is good. And I feel confident that, Chester County did a good job. They were really on it. There's a woman that actually does it in the office. It's not somebody who doesn't that's her full-time job to do this. So I would like to put this up on the website along with the survey. So if people have questions about how it was monitored, they can take a look at that. So let's see now. Let's see. Okay, can you see the survey?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the questions, well, first of all, I'd like to say this. Thank you to all the residents that participated. We had 515 responses. And I'd also like to say this is just the beginning. We haven't gone over the survey as a task force because our meeting is on Tuesday. And invite the public as always to join us if you want to see more about the survey, and Chester County Planning will be there and be happy to answer questions. So it's this coming Tuesday at 6:30. So the questions were divided into 5 groups: quality of life, resource protection and land preservation, land use, housing and development, community facilities and services, and then general. So let's see, here's the first question. And most of the questions, not most, many of the questions were also done in the survey that was done in 2004. So something for the board to think about that you can answer at the end of the survey. If you'd like to put the 2004 survey up as well, that's possible. I don't know if you'll find that too confusing if we mix and match. So what is the reasons you chose to live in Franklin Township? Again, rural, quiet lifestyle, scenic beauty, quality of schools, proximity to preserves, trails, and natural areas, and safety, security, low crime levels were the high scores. Other than changes in employment, what's the reasons you would leave Franklin Township? School taxes too high, area becoming too developed, retirement or downsizing, and changes in the unique local character. Which which of the following are important for the township to focus on? Because there were 10 responses, there's lots of the top ones. The number one was open space preservation, retention of rural character, conservation of scenic resources, traffic and road improvements, natural resource protection, agricultural land preservation, and management of development and growth. Question 4, which of the following natural and historical resources are most important to protect through regulation and other means? Groundwater, people are concerned about their well water. Streams, pond, and wetlands was number 2. Number 3 is wildlife habitat. And number 4 was open space areas and connections. Connections means trail connections throughout the township. Question 5, what are the most important conservation subjects for the township to focus on? For reference, approximately 8.5% of the 2020 township budget is spent on these items. The 8.5% does include the open space loan. So 1 is open space preservation, 2 is natural resources, and 3 was agricultural land preservation. So it's the same theme that's going through the survey. It also was the same theme that was done at our community workshop. Question 6, here's land use. Where is the best location for commercial uses? Number 1 was major roadways, corridors of PA 896 and 841. Number 2 was they want it anywhere but here. No, they don't want it in the township. And number 3 was also in Campbellsville. 7, in reference to question 6, how should these commercial uses look? They like the small individual buildings fronting on the road with parking in the back and possibly with mixed residential and non-residential uses, looking a little bit like a village rather than a strip shopping center, which didn't score very well. 8, where's the best location for new industrial uses? Well, they don't want it in Franklin Township. Number 1 was no additional in the township. It did not score well at all. And then if we do have to put it somewhere, they want it on 896 or 841. 9, given an equal number of residential lots to be built on a parcel, which development pattern would you prefer to see in the township? And they could check up to 2 responses. So they kind of want a combination of these options. I'd like to have Chester County Planning talk about that a little more, how we could do that. But number 2 actually was the conventional development where it's on 1 acre lots, no open space. You know, everybody has their own, property, just conventional development. All right, 10 is going to be hard because it's a whole lot of data. So let me see. I'm just going to go down the ones that scored the highest on promote. I'll do that. And I'll just start at the beginning and go to the end, which is agricultural uses and their preservation, housing that allows residents to age in place or young people to move out of parents' homes. Promote was also ecotourism. Also small scale commercial uses, parks, rec, and network, and nature preserves and open space. Now you could look at this data a certain way. I'm not going to get into it because it's not my job, but you could add promote and maintain together to see who scored better. But this gives you an idea. And again, it will be on the website, so you can take a look at these figures. The general public, you don't have to take notes. It will be on the website, so you can take a look at it and decide which one you think is the best response. Is Franklin Township a good place for seniors and young people? Well, it is, I guess, for both. There was some question in the task force. We should have maybe defined what a senior and a young person was, but we decided that people should make their own minds up what that meant. And it just turned out pretty much 50-50, a little better for young people than for seniors. 2012, which of the following are the most important to address in Campbellsville? Number 1 was allow for local businesses, salons, specialty food stores, antique shop. 2 was retain the village character. 13, what types of businesses? Restaurants scored high, food specialty shops, and recreational services all scored high. 14, again, it's another one of these complicated questions, but it looks like I'll do it the other way. Rather than saying that it meets the needs, let's look that it doesn't meet the needs. It says maintenance of Pennsylvania roads does not meet needs. On-road cycling opportunities does not meet their needs, or pedestrian walkways were all the higher scores. Outside your home, where do you participate in recreational activities? Well, thanks to our Park and Rec, local parks, trails, and preserves in Franklin Township scored #1, which is a good thing. Followed by local parks outside of Franklin Township. A third and fourth was White Clay in Pennsylvania and in Delaware. And then fifth was Fair Hill, and the other ones scored a little later than those. 16, how important are the following types of park and recreational facilities and services? #1 was multi-use trails. The most not important, people aren't interested in camping areas. All right, volunteers. We actually have volunteers. So again, park and recreation, you guys scored the highest, with people wanting to volunteer for trail park, open space preservation, cleanup, and maintenance. So that's something for you guys to think about, how to find those people. Because again, remember that the survey was done without people submitting their names. So we have to put that in the, maybe in the newsletter. 18, part of these list priority intersections where transportation improvements are needed. Now, a lot of these are going to be addressed with the 896 improvements. And so rather than go through them, because it's 896 and Appleton Road, 896 and 841, 896 and Good Hope Road, which I know the Board of Supervisors are very aware of. I was thinking that you might want to consider how to get the information out to the folks about what the improvements are going to be. 19, let's see, beyond the intersection improvements in question 18, rank the additional transportation needs you believe should be addressed. Please rank the following from 1 to 9, 1 being the most important. So the most important was maintenance of township roads. Then followed by shoulder widening, gateways and traffic calming, and connecting preserves. So that's something to consider. 20, I don't know if this is how frequently do you travel on the roads? 896, of course, is the most traveled, followed by 841, and then Appleton Road, and the other ones drop off after that. How long have you lived in the township? Well, it's right in the middle. People have lived, the biggest score was more than 20 years, but kind of right in the middle, from 10 to more than 20 years are the people that answered the survey. Size of the property, again, right in the middle. We had 46% from 1 acre, less than 2 acres, but then we had 33 that had 2 acres, but less than 10. When were you born? Looks like the baby boomers were the ones that answered it the most. Again, if more people than you live at your house, what are the ages of the other people? I'm sure that there may be talking a bit about their spouses, because 45 to 64 were the high scores. This is nice. We got about 50-50 males versus females, which is good. What area of Campbellsville do you live? So we had northeast of 896 and 41, and southeast of 896 and 41. So it's kind of that either end of the township. Pre-COVID, where people work, we are interested in that. So interesting enough, most people work in their own home or farm, even pre-COVID. I'm sure that figure's gone up a lot. Followed by Chester County, Southern Chester County, so they're local. And then more Chester County, the township. Some people work in Maryland. Elsewhere in Delaware, that's not just Wilmington, it could be Dover as well and other places. Following occupations, kind of all over the place. We're all employed in different ways. Professional services is kind of the highest, followed by people that were retired that answered the survey. How would you prefer to be made of township information? Email list. So I don't know where we are now. We used to have over 200 people on the email list. Maybe find a way, if that's what they prefer, then they need to give you their email so they can get the emails. Newsletters up there, township websites up there. Now these are called, I forget what they're called, but what happens is that they take, Chester County Planning took all of the people, whatever people filled out, the larger the word, the more it was mentioned. I've heard back from the task force that some people find this okay, some people find it not useful at all. I'll be interested to talk to Janine at Chester County Planning to see how we can maybe get a better idea what all this means. Because to me, it just looked like a bunch of words, but I'm old, so what can I say? Same thing, other comments. We are going to talk at our meeting about how to do the further comments, because some people really did put in comments, including some people actually gave their name. So we do need to get back to those folks. I have not seen them. This is all that I've seen. I'd like to say it was a successful survey, with over 500 responses. When we mailed it out in 2004, we got just over 400 responses. So we got more than that. So I'll leave this up in case somebody wants me to put up another question, but Mary, I'll turn it over to you for comments, how you want to run the comments. And I can put a question up if somebody wants to see it.
I don't have any questions. Anyone have any comments or questions they'd like to ask Nan?
I have some comments if
ahead,
the
John.
floor is open.
Go ahead, John.
The recent survey closely monitors the community value survey conducted in 2004. And I think that she included that, and I think it should be included in the whatever we post, and make sure we discriminate as to which survey is which, but they are very closely aligned. The survey response in that first one was 24%. An important point that preceded the survey was an enormous residential housing growth. In that case, 433 new residents were constructed from 1995 to 2006. The survey was conducted in 2004. And that was an annual growth rate of 3% a year. As you can imagine, the residents were very concerned about housing growth, and their concerns were reflected in the survey. Many wanted strong controls on housing growth and favored land preservation that directly interdicted housing growth. 2007, the subprime mortgage market collapsed, and the residential housing growth fell to 0.6%. From 2007 to 2020. So a huge drop in housing growth in Franklin to something very low. Both the currently conducted survey and the 2004 survey questions were structured to strongly bias and get a response favoring more land preservation. Additionally, neither survey provided any economic consequences to the survey choices. And I do plan to review the surveys in detail and respond with more detail to support these conclusions. I just quickly read the thing, maybe a little faster than Nan presented it tonight. But just a bit of history for new residents. The 2004 survey was used by the board to justify a very aggressive land preservation program, 2007 to 2010. A $3.5 million 32-year loan was taken by the board and was completely spent and stopped, and the program stopped in 2010. The board proposed increasing the earned income tax by 0.5% on a ballot referendum, 2011, and the primary and general elections. Both cases, the ballot initiative was rejected by a strong margin. The objective of the new funding then was to facilitate another long-term loan of $5 million. What many people don't realize that the loan, that the open space that was procured during that period has not been paid for. The loan payments will not be completed till year 2040. So this cost really hangs on the Franklin Township budget like an albatross. I have other comments later, but that's just my initial response, that you need to look at this survey in the context of some of the history in the township.
Nan, I'll just say that, really for the past 10 years, we haven't known what residents were interested in. So I thought it was really helpful. It doesn't mean it's one point of understanding and knowledge. It shouldn't be scary to anyone. No one should be frightened that something's going to happen from it. It's simply having knowledge about what our residents value. And it doesn't surprise me, because when we went door to door, every resident said they valued the rural character and they don't want 40 houses next to them. So thank you so much to that group and to all of the residents who responded for giving us at least a sense of what people are feeling and what's important to them.
Right.
And Nancy, I know you're trying to alleviate fears, but I hope something does happen based on this. I think and it's part of the comprehensive plan. We listen to the residents. We hear what they think. We put that in the context of other things that are going on. And I know Nan has multiple meetings still planned, and it's about the process of getting us to a place where we can project what the future looks like. And I think this is part of that. So I think it's a good piece, and I want to thank Nan for putting it together.
Yeah, absolutely. And making improvements and looking at what our residents need doesn't mean raising taxes. And I think all of us agree that's the last thing we would ever do. So that's not the point of the survey. It's not the point of anything. It's to truly understand what our residents value. And I think we should just leave it at that.
Well, thank you very much for all your comments. I agree. I was happy to see that people are interested in doing the trails, and we have such a strong, trail committee now that that's fun. And so that will be a fun thing to pursue.
And you make a good point, Nan. The PRO group, they're really right on with some of the comments that are here about the trails and making sure that we have that capability in our park. So. In a sense, they're addressing some of the needs and wants of the group that answered this survey. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Nan. Dave, you're up next with Jim German. I think he's already given us a lot of information, but.
Jim German will
Jim German will offer his report for the Franklin Township Sportsman Association.
Slow, busy month. Not much has changed from membership. Like I said, we're at 35. We did have one more member successfully take his archery proficiency test. Right now, the state of Pennsylvania is in the big swing of hunting season. Archery's in this week, although we don't do it in the club. Muzzleloader season is in, starting, I believe it's tomorrow. Senior, or I know for sure this weekend, since I'm not a senior, I don't follow it closely, but senior hunting and junior hunting is where individuals can go to the woods and use guns to take deer this weekend. So you may hear some extra shooting around the township this weekend. Please don't be alarmed, but nothing on the preserve. So just in general out there around in the surrounding community. Parcels, everything is good and quiet. Haven't heard anything. 2 deer have been harvested out of Franklin so far this season. one this past weekend and one earlier in the month. From a service project standpoint, Banffshire out around the parking area has been mowed and weed whacked. Crossing Park, as I spoke earlier, during the pro members from the FSA have gone around and cleaned up the edges, cut back that area. The playground area equipment was sanded and painted. And so everything's good. It looks real good. At this point, I don't think there's any issues with the equipment. And then this past weekend, a couple members of the FSA assisted with the Township Shredder event up here by the across from the charter school. Dave was there. Probably not the turnout we hoped to have got, but we did serve a number of residents of the township. And so far, the club has contributed 82 hours of service to the township since July. And just an FYI, we're getting into the time of year when the deer rut is on. It's when the bucks want to mate with the doe. So the bucks get crazy, don't know how to think anymore, and they just run. So please watch yourself as driving around. The deer don't care about cars this time of year. So they're running all over the place. So just be safe out there driving. And that's it.
All right, thank you very much, Jim. Now let's go to business. Nancy, can you take the next item, please?
Yeah, I see Shelley McCoy and Lisa Zawada are here to represent the Avon Grove Library. Can you two give us an update? And your cat is also included, Lisa.
We actually have the library director, Lori Schwabenbauer, is here, and she's going to give the report. We just wanted to say hello to everyone and be here to answer questions.
Any questions, anybody?
Okay, well, hello, everybody. Thank you for having us this evening. I appreciate it very much. It's very interesting to, my name's Lori, by the way.
Lori, sorry.
Oh, quite all right. Yeah, you did see my cat make an appearance. Yeah. Sometimes it's like having a toddler. I was very interested to hear about the results of the survey because we, the library did focus groups a couple of years ago. And that was one of the top things we found from other people in our service area, which covers the Avon Grove School District area and a little more than that, and was the small town character, the rural character of the area, and the open space. Those things were huge. And so if there's anything that the library can do to help, as plans are formulated or to get word out or anything like that, we're happy to help with that. Because we can see that's something that's important to all of our customers too. So talking about what the library's been up to, of course, we were closed down earlier this year, like everyone, for about 4 months. And we reopened in July. So we're back to our regular hours, but of course not seeing quite as many people as we did before. A lot of people are still staying home and staying as safe as they can. So I'm mostly going to talk about what last year's statistics looked like because this year's got very skewed. But I do want to talk about some ways we've adapted to the pandemic situation as well. So last year, over 10% of our library cards are held by Franklin Township residents. And that was 846 residents out of our total card number of a little over 8,000. And Franklin patrons attended our programs and our story times nearly 3,000 times. Of course, that's a lot of repeat people. But that's like 3,000 adults and children who came to different programs and story times that we held every week. They also borrowed, we have to estimate because we don't have exact figures for each municipality. So what we do is divvy up the numbers more or less by a percentage. So we took that 10.6% of our library cards from Franklin Township and figured out the numbers that way. So the estimate is that last year, Franklin Township residents borrowed over 15,000 items, including print books and ebooks and movies on DVD, music on CD, magazines, and other items that we have. So that was a pretty hefty figure for borrowing. And I went back a little further, just out of curiosity's sake. Our library system software was put in place over 15 years ago, and it doesn't count the ebook circulation, but for all the print, all the physical items, print books and print magazines and DVDs and CDs, Franklin cardholders have checked out in all that time, over 130,000 items. So we found that pretty significant. And then in last year, in terms of the electronic books and streaming audiobooks that we have, the ebooks, they borrowed over 3,000, it's estimated, in 2019. And then since we started offering ebooks within the last decade, it's estimated that they've borrowed almost 17,000 ebook titles, and that number is going up and up every year. And especially this year, during March to July, when we were shut down, the number went up very significantly. Actually, March to August is what I measured. I looked at the figures for ebook use March through August this year compared to 2019, and it went up 43% this year. So we were spending extra money on ebooks to try and meet this need. And so that we could see that was money well spent, because the circulation really went up. And so the nice thing about that is that people can borrow the ebooks. They're very convenient, very easy. When at the end of the borrowing period, they just disappear off your device, and there's no chance that you're going to get charged for an overdue book or anything like that. So people find them very convenient, and we're all around the county, people are using them more and more. So we're devoting more of our budget to these items. And what we've been doing this year is actually working to bring many more programs to you virtually. Our staff has learned a good deal about things like conducting Zoom meetings and having programs through Facebook and YouTube. So we've got a YouTube channel of our own now. We've got new programs in place that are letting us do family trivia nights. We have, and our staff has really stepped up to do these things. So we're offering now 2 to 3 story times online per week, and we're probably going to continue that even after, as we hope, things will get more back to normal and in the next weeks ahead and months ahead. But because people do find them very convenient, since they wouldn't have to travel and they can interact live with our staff through Zoom, we're probably going to keep offering at least a couple of Zoom story times and programs every week, just because that is convenient for a lot of people, homeschoolers and people who don't live quite as close to the library. We're also offering some live programs now, again, in the parks, just because outdoors it's easier to let people get together. It's a little easier to be socially distant in a large park than a small room like what we have in our own library. So we've got a lot of different things going on. We've got crafting classes. We did our summer reading program virtually, and it was such a success on the virtual platform that we continued it with a new fall reading program that's also virtual, and that includes adults as well as children, and that's been a big hit. So, so we've got a lot going on, and we're happy to be able to serve the community, even though, in the midst of the pandemic. And I've got a letter on the way to the township with all of this information in it that I've just given you, and our funding request for the coming year, because we know that because the pandemic has hit municipalities as well as everybody fairly hard in some ways in terms of funding. So the recommended funding level for municipal funding from the state library office is $5 per capita. And Franklin Township very kindly increased their giving last year. And we're asking, the board and I are asking for the township to if they can, possibly come halfway to the $5 per capita figure, which would be a relatively small increase of $13.50 to last year's support figure, which would round it up to $23,100. So that's our request for this coming year. And I hope all's going well on your end in terms of finances, that hopefully you'll be able to meet everybody's needs in that respect. Does anyone have any questions about anything we're doing, or?
Yeah, Lori, I do.
Yeah.
I know you said you'd send a letter with all this information you just gave us.
Yeah.
Is it also available on your website?
No, because I guess these, we've been doing one of these, I'm calling it like a fast facts sheet.
Okay.
I could put it on the website if the board would approve it. So some of the items they may consider more confidential to each particular township. For instance, although it's a matter of public record what the support level is, so maybe not so confidential. But I guess I just would want to get their approval before doing that.
I'm sorry, Lori. I didn't mean the funding. I meant all these wonderful programs.
Yes.
Can they go on your website and get all this information?
Yes, we actually have just moved over to a new website. Our last one was having problems, and then we finally couldn't access it at all. So we've moved to a new website, which we are still in the process of fine tuning, but most of the important things are there. So including some information about our programs and for children as well as adults.
And what is that website, Lori?
It's avongrovellibrary.org.
All right. Thank you, Lori.
Sure, thank you. And we also have a Facebook page that has a lot of information as well.
Okay.
Shelley, or do you want to add anything there?
We didn't. You did a great job.
Oh, thanks. And my cat stayed away. I'm very happy. I kind of have to drug it sometimes. My goodness.
Okay. Anyone have any more questions for Lori before we move on? Thank you so much, Lori. You gave us so much wonderful information.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to visit. Thank you.
You're a wonderful resource in our community.
Yeah. Well, you know, I've got to say it's down to the staff. I've got a great staff, a great board, great volunteers and friends of the library. It's a wonderful group to work with. And
That's great.
We love it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Okay. So I guess we'll move on. Donna, you want to move on to the next item of business, please?
Sure. I have down here that Ron Reagan will discuss his road evaluation report.
Okay.
No motion is offered. Is Ron here?
Yes.
I am
Okay,
here.
great. All right, turn it over to you, Ron.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming that at least the members of the board and staff have a copy of the report that I did back in September. And so I'll refer to that. Basically, I met with Joan and Jeff, and they talked to me a little bit about, they wanted me to come in and look at 6 different sections of road and comment on the quality of the paving job that was done on those roads. So I went out and did a visual inspection, took pictures and videos of those roads. I also looked at quite a bit of documentation on what was proposed to be done there, so I could compare that to what was done. And out of that, I came up with this report. And in the cover memo, I indicate that, you know, I'm a fairly tough grader, so you're not going to see a lot of A's. They're mostly, you know, you get a B or B plus. That's probably the highest grade that I would give. In looking at these roads, we ranged from a C minus to a B, actually to a B plus. And the couple of comments. Let me just preface it by saying that a number of the issues that I saw were issues of a crooked middle seam or a seam that did not stay tight and was closed. It had started to separate. I saw issues with what I call start-stop blemishes, and what that is every time you get a new truckload and you have to pull the truck away from the paver has to stop and wait for the truck to back up to it and dump in new blacktop so you can continue going with paving. And it's nice if you can do that without any evidence of where that happened. And then the other thing would be the edges, how well the edges are doing, and whether or not you're getting any alligatoring. And A number of the roads had issues with the middle seam being crooked and separating a little bit. But each individual road had different degrees of that. A lot of the roads had the stop-start blemishes where you were filling, changing trucks. And I attributed a lot of that to the size of the paver that was being used. The contractor that you're using and who he's working with have a fairly small paver that they're doing this work with. And it's basically my impression that some of the instances where I was seeing some issues with the seam, some issues with the stop-start blemishes, some issues with jagged or rough edges alongside the edge of the road not being, perfectly straight, were a result of the smaller paver is hard to keep moving in a straight direction, putting down a straight line of blacktop behind it. The bigger the machine is, the easier it is to do that. So when you go through and look at, the jobs, the worst one I think is Scotts Glen. So Scotts Glen Road, that was the first one that I did, and I pulled an error, and I was like a little bit disappointed because there are a lot of stop-start blemishes. They're especially noticeable in the cul-de-sac back at the end of Scotts Glen Road. There are a lot of seams that have had to have an oil put on the seam because they were separating that seam in the middle of the road, because you have to do the road in 2 passes. And so it got the poorest grade, but most of that was a result of the smaller paving. There may have been some other contributing factors, like sometimes you have an issue with, especially in a cul-de-sac, you have to wait for, trucks are there and you get 6 trucks and you're trying to unload them as quickly as you can. There's a lot of manual labor associated with doing a cul-de-sac, so you end up having some of those kinds of issues. I didn't plan on going through each road by road, but certainly any questions, I'm willing to answer those. But like I say, I think the main concern I had was that they're doing, I think, as good a job as they can do with the paver that they're using. And I didn't think it's that bad of a job. It's not like, you don't go look at even the bigger pavers, you don't have some seam issues. You don't go look at the bigger jobs where sometimes, especially when you're doing a long single access road where you have these stop-start blemishes because you have to wait a while for a truck to back in and back out because they can't run over the peak, especially on the last lane of blacktop that you're doing. The first lane generally goes better than the second last lane because you can back in and out quicker because there's no impediment. But when you've got a fresh laid cartway of blacktop on one side and you have to back in and the last truck has to pull all the way out before the next truck can back all the way in, certainly that first stretch out of that cul-de-sac where you're starting has longer wait times while the paver is sitting there waiting to start back up again. And you get more pronounced stop-start blemishes at those locations.
Ron, I have just a quick question for us to understand the difference between the grades. Could you tell us about a road in the region that is an A or an A minus so that we can look at that and say, that's what Ron means about an A paving job?
There was a subdivision road that was done in Wheatland Farms in New London Township, where I'm the township engineer. Mm-hmm. And that was done by Long's Asphalt. Long's does a lot of work in the area. And they have a large track paver that actually has the capability of paving the full width of the cartway. But generally we don't utilize that because then you have to be able to control the traffic and not allow any traffic on those roads. And that's difficult to do because people want to come and go all the time during the day, or for some reason it seems more probable than it is, less probable that you end up picking a day in a subdivision that's trash day where the mailman's got to come through or whatever. So you have to be able to accommodate that traffic. But that road, if the first road, the one that's across from Hess Mill, if you go in there and go in, because that job was done in phases. If you go straight in from Hess Mill Road and go about 500, 700 feet, something like that, that stretch of road was done, back in 2018, I think it was. And I think that road, I would probably have given it an A-. The seams are all very uniform. And if you went in and took a tape measure and measured it from the curb over to that seam, you would get a nice uniform distance from the curb. The seams are all tight together. There was no necessity to oil that middle seam because it stayed together and was nice and tight. And it was almost like you didn't have a seam. So that's probably an A- road that I've seen. I don't know that I've seen any, what I would give a straight up A, because there's always something that happens that either you have a manhole that doesn't quite get sealed, the paving's not quite around it the way it should be, that the top of the manhole ended up being too high or too low. So you end up getting a little bit of a depression, or the manhole sticks up a little bit. Curbing is an issue a lot of times. Edging driveways. I didn't mention the driveways, but there are some issues with driveways that were a concern, I understand, on Guernsey Road. It's difficult to do it on an existing township road. It's difficult to do a good transition into these driveways because they're all over the place in terms of slopes, size, width, material, whether there's a swale or no swale. So it's hard to make a nice uniform transition to those. When you go into some of the subdivisions, there you can come in and mill the edge and pave right up to a milled edge. So it's nice and easy to do a good transition there. So again, I'm sorry, long answer to tell you. If you look at that road opposite Hess Mill Road going into, I think it's called Commonwealth. I don't know for sure what the name of the road is, but it's the one opposite Hess Mill.
Thank you, Ron.
Any more questions for Ron?
Yeah, I just have a couple general comments. I mean, all these road paving jobs are going to have some issues, as Ron suggested here. You can't really use a full width paver on most of our roads because you end up blocking traffic, and that just doesn't work very well. So you really need to work with a paver that does half the road and the other half, and then you have to deal with the seams. So that's just the nature of roads in Franklin. So the only other comment I'd say, overall, the work that was done was pretty good. I think this is an extremely important report because it validates the good performance of our infrastructure contractor, Jim DeRazio, and his yard works company. So I was pretty pleased with the report.
All right. Thank you, John. Anyone else have any questions for Ron? All right, then, John, can you update us on the Hess Mill Bridge?
Yes.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you very much, Ron.
All right, I'm going to sign off because I have another meeting to go back to, if that's okay.
Okay, thanks a
All right,
lot.
thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'll make this fairly quick. Overall situation with the project is really very good. We're on schedule. Key schedule points is we are going to receive the bridge in the first week of November, and it'll take about 2 or 3 days to put the bridge in. That will complete the bridge manufacturer's scope of work, and Jim will have to finish the job after that, which is put the roadway in and the guardrail and all that stuff. And that's still scheduled for December 1st. So we're pretty much on the original schedule. A couple of details. We did a meeting, I think last week, with the bridge manufacturer out on the site, and that was a very productive meeting where Jim's equipment folks and Jim worked with the two representatives of bridge, and they spent a good bit of time working out the schedule for how they're going to put the bridge in. And when I left, they still hadn't completely resolved the exact schedule, but they're really trying to reduce the rental time for the crane. So I'm not sure where they ended up, but they were right on the mark. It's somewhere at the beginning of November, we'll put the bridge in. Just to give you a little bit of idea about the magnitude of some of the pieces, the bridge has 4 large concrete blocks that support it, 2 on each side of the stream. And these are not minor blocks, they're 23 tons each. They're, you can imagine a block of concrete, 16 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 3 feet deep. So it takes the crane, the large crane, to lift and place those. So Jim's folks right now, well, I did indicate that they had removed the bridge completely. All the old material is out of the area and been disposed. But their next step is to excavate the creek bed and provide a base for these 4 blocks. The bridge manufacturer will put these blocks in when they deliver the bridge and the crane. They also have a 60-inch plastic pipe and a cofferdam, which is keeping the water flowing through the area, and it's keeping the water off of the work areas on the banks. So overall, I think we're right on schedule. We would like to gotten this done a little sooner, but the bridge manufacturer couldn't move up his schedule. So I think the only thing we might have toward the end when we go to finish the bridge is whether we can get any, what the weather conditions are there, whether we can get hot mix to finish the surface of the bridge. But there is a contingency plan that if for some reason we can't use hot mix, we might have to use a compacted stone surface to get us through the winter, which is 2A modified. That packs down really hard. So hopefully we don't have to do that, but that's our contingency plan. So the overall assessment of the project is going well. So any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the next item.
All right. Paul, you've already given us a lot of information on Banffshire, but I have a question. If we make a motion, this resolution 2020-20, do we have to ask for the total amount, the 10,000, or do we ask for that we'll pay 5,000? How does that work, Paul?
There's 2 lines in there.
Yes.
One states the total project value, and then one states the 50% that you would match.
Okay.
And the numbers I submitted were 11,000 and 5,500.
5,500. Okay. And we've already approved 11,000 for you, correct, Paul?
I think it was 10,000, but I was trying to get more engineering paid for. So that's why I included some of that. Yeah.
All right. Does anybody have questions for Paul on this?
The only question I got is what do we sign? How much do you think we would get on the grant? It's 5,500 is what I heard.
That's correct. 5,500 is what I'm asking for. So really to the board, there's no downside, right? If you apply and we don't get the grant, we're back to where we were, where we're paying for it. If you apply and you do get the grant, you could get $5,500.
Yeah, absolutely. I just really wanted to know what the magnitude was, but if you can get $5,500, that's better than nothing. So
yeah,
if you get $1,000, you're ahead of the game. I'd be happy with any amount. So it's well worth it.
The only strings attached, I have to be clear, is you have to put a sign that says PICO helped fund this project.
No problem.
Yeah.
How big did they want the sign?
What's that?
How big did they want the sign?
18
Billboard,
feet,
right?
25 feet. No. The one we have on Goodwin is about 6 inches by 20 inches.
Yeah, that's
fine.
And they even pay for the sign.
It's good PR for them. I can't blame them. This is a win-win for everybody.
Donna, that's what it's all about. It's all about the PR.
So Mary, do you read the resolution or how do we do this?
Okay, I'll read the resolution. I make a motion to approve resolution 2020-20 to authorizing application to the 2020 Pico Green Region Open Space Program for the Banffshire Bridge project in the amount of $11,000.
Yeah, I'll second that, Mary.
Okay, thank you, Donna. All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any nay? Motion passes 5-0. Thanks for getting all this for us, Paul. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very
Wonderful.
much. I
Paul,
appreciate it.
I just want to recognize you and the volunteers you work with.
Mhm.
It wasn't enough that you're using volunteer labor to keep the costs down. Now you found a grant and I think you're writing it yourself. So you're a real value in the community and we really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
thanks, Nancy. Yep.
All right, thank you very much, Paul. John, you have the next item, please.
Okay, am I muted? No. Lexington Pointe update by Mark Thompson. So we really like to know where we are, because you recall the last meeting, Lexington Pointe was here, Jeff Rutt, and he was very anxious to get his grass planted. And we even offered an interim meeting between this meeting and the last one, which didn't come to fruition. So just kind of wondering where the urgency is now, because we really reached out hard to them to try to accommodate their needs if they can come up with a developer agreement. So Mark, if you just give us an update of where we are with this developer agreement.
Sure, John. And you're right that there was some urgency at the last meeting, and that has continued. We've had numerous phone conversations with the folks from Lexington Pointe, as well as their attorney and their engineer. They basically have agreed to all of the changes. We actually just had a conference call today. They have agreed to utilize the original agreement to construct. Stan Corbin and I have worked diligently on changes to that agreement to accommodate the new proposed system and the structure that Lexington Pointe is looking to implement concerning how they fund their capital reserve account. We're almost there. We have a couple more items that we need to put together. We don't want to put anything in front of the board that has loose ends, given the fact that we've been dealing with Lexington Pointe for quite some time. We think we might have something that Stan and I are comfortable recommending sometime in the next week or two. And we will certainly keep the board and Joan apprised of those issues. Haven't had a lot of pushback, a lot of cooperation. It's clear to us that they want to try to get their plantings in before the winter. So we're working hard to try to accommodate that, John.
Yeah, it's too bad if they hadn't. I mean, now we got to wait another month because it's not even on the agenda, but we probably would offer them another meeting if they wanted it, I guess. I don't think, I think the board.
We'll let you know.
Well, yeah, let's just let the process play out. And Mary, made a great point, which is they've taken years to get here. They really, against agreements, cut the grass, which has created the problem. They've cut the brush, and now they want us to help them solve it. So I think we just need to follow the process.
I agree. I'm just kind of aghast, really, that this thing's drug out 2 months when they were in such a rush to get it done in September. So
I mean, this seems to be the pattern, right? They come in, say, let's come to an agreement, let's get this thing done, and then they disappear or they don't finish their job. I mean, it's really difficult. And I know, you made a point, John, to say, all right, let's just have a special meeting. And I don't even know if I'm in favor of that at this point, because why would we even lend any olive branch at all if they keep kind of, jerking us around like this,
Well, I'm trying to be cooperative.
I guess go ahead, John. Sorry.
I'm trying to be cooperative and reaching out to them, but I got the same feeling you did, David. You've been here a shorter time, but you figured it out right away that we get the bum's rush on one of these items and we get hurried up and then they go away for a while. So I've seen this scenario go on many, many times over the course of this project. So
Yeah, let's just make sure we don't agree on anything unless it's a board agreement.
No, I'm not, I'm just suggesting if that comes up, we'd have to contact board members and see whether they'd be willing to do that.
Yeah, we're looking to get, I mean, they haven't gone away in the interim. I mean, they have been, responsive to our comments and our issues. The only problem is it's something that, Stan and I have to do the majority of the work. So, we will let the board know when they're in a position that we could recommend whether or not, you guys want to have a special meeting or whatnot. But we're working on it. I mean, generally it would be a good thing if they could get their planting in before the winter. But if they can't, then they'll just have to wait for the spring. It's not the end of the world. But we certainly will let you know when we are comfortable with the status of the agreements and the financial security and the plans themselves, to the point where we can recommend that the board approve something. So we're working towards that end.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much grass you could get growing if they started in the middle of November, although winter wheat grows pretty well right now, but I'm not sure that grass will. So, all right, that's all I have.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Mark. Thanks for the update.
Okay, I'll
Nancy?
take the next one. The
Thank
board
you.
will discuss engaging Carrie Vargo. Carrie, thanks for joining us, to conduct an assessment of the township office structure and operations. If the board agrees, the following motion can be used. And I think I'll make the motion, we can discuss it, and if we don't want to go forward, we don't have to. I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors authorize the township manager to sign the contract for the assessment in the amount of $6,565. Seconded by.
Second, I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
I've read the contract, and I actually sent this request to Mary and Joan back in the end of September, and I don't think we've heard anything from Mr. Vargo on it. So I looked at the scope of services, and it seemed reasonable. But what I was looking for is, will we get a recommendation? So if you evaluate. But I would be looking for some kind of recommendation in terms of options that we can consider for restructuring or for reworking the office, or working who does what. I mean, I just don't need evaluations. I need, okay, because of what you've seen and because of your experience, you would make the following recommendations, or the board should consider the following three options, or give us something. So is that your plan? And if it is, I'd like to see it included in the contract.
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. First of all, kudos to your residents for 515 responses to the comp plan survey. That's really quite impressive. Donna, yes, that recommendations will be included. There will be a number of recommendations that would be included, and then really the final process is driven by the board, majority of the board. And it is important to note that the members of the board and all the staff will be participants in the process. But we can certainly add a line that would include recommendations. I was trying to evaluate it. Yeah, I mean, we can certainly add a line that might just, I mean, that's the intent of that entire scope, is to really detail where you are now, where you want to be, and how you're going to get there.
Right, and how to get there would be like I said, I don't expect you to tell us exactly what to do, but you can say you can consider A, or you can consider B, or you can consider C. So I look at that as providing us the evaluation, and then based on that evaluation, your experience, these are the options we can consider, and then of course it's going to be up to the board to decide. But if you don't pull it all together for us, it just makes more work for the board. And you've been doing this for years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the intent of that entire scope. So if you'd like a line added to that it references a final report, but it doesn't include. I mean, I guess I can talk to Joan in reference to maybe drilling down on some additional detail that would give you a level of comfort.
That would make me happy. Because you do talk about options for succession planning, but I would like to see the word option for, structure, whatever the right words are. Just, I think you understand where I'm coming from.
I do.
All right,
So,
Carrie, I'd like to give you some perspective in why I'm supporting this study, so you get an idea what I'm thinking. Is some time ago, 2015, I did a benchmark study on our township as compared to surrounding townships. And really at that point, my objective was looking at expenses and income. But what I noticed is that several of the townships that immediately surround us, being New London Township and London Britain Township, operate with significantly lower office hours and with a lot of part-time help. And we're a 40-hour-a-week office with full-time help. And we're similar in our demographics and the amount of roadways we have, and we're right next to each other. So I'm wondering why we have so much resource and they get along with less. If you look at New London, they only operate 18 hours a week, and London Britain only operates 12 hours a week. So there's a big difference between our office and theirs. We operate 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4 p.m. So that's what I would be wondering, is whether there's any possibility of controlling the hours. We unfortunately lost one of our long-term full-time employees, and now we have a temporary part-time employee, which could end up being a long-term part-time employee, but it's an opportunity to get one of these positions in part-time if the workload supports it. And of course, when you look at any operation, people will find things to do for the whole week, whether you need all of it or not. So that's really where I am. Let's try to look at the workflow and what's being done and whether we need it all, because other townships that surround us do a lot less. Now, I wouldn't propose that our township manager and treasurer would work a short week, because her job's a full-time job all the way. I would kind of envision a 3-day-a-week office, Monday through Thursday, and that's when our zoning officer is in there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that's when we get a lot of pedestrian traffic coming in for permits. That's the primary reason that people visit the township, is to get and manage the permits.
All right, John, this is what I believe. This is what Carrie's going to go over. He's got a lot of experience in this, and these are the questions he's going to answer for us. I do have a question for you, Carrie. How long does this process normally take?
Well, you guys being in Chester County, and me being in Chester County, that's going to expedite.
Okay.
We're doing management studies now I was just out in the Pittsburgh area.
Oh.
Trying to coordinate, Emporium Borough, which is up, frankly, near the New York border. So scheduling those type of projects, some of those things can take months. As soon as, the board approves it, and we get the paperwork all finalized, I'll reach out to Joan and start scheduling the process. So, I mean, I would imagine, we could probably wrap it up by, understanding that there's holidays, probably sometime in January.
Okay. All right, here's an issue we're going to have, Carrie, and why I'm asking you how long. Our current full-time secretary will be part-time come January 1 because of retirement issues. She can only work part-time, so we have to make a decision, hopefully based on your input. What do we go forward with? So we're really, okay. So it might be January.
Yeah, well, so listen, I think what we can do, if you guys are telling me you have an immediate need, and I do plan on being in the meeting, because I see there's an agenda item in your secretary position. We can prioritize this project and move forward with it immediately and try to wrap it up just as quickly as we can.
Well, I mean, I don't think we'd want to do something hurried. We want to take the time that it needs to take to get done. So my only comment on this process is we're kind of, right now we're in the middle of a number of township business items like getting our budgets together. We, as you pointed out, we have a brand new secretary who's still trying to learn the ropes. I guess what I'm trying to try to say is that in principle, I support the idea of going in and doing a holistic study of township management and services. But I wonder if we should, rather, and it kind of counters what Mary just said, is push this to January 1st for next year. So we could spend the next few months figuring out, okay, well, where's what is our secretary situation? Can Mary do this job part-time? Do we hire somebody in the interim, right? Because if come January 1st, we may be in a position where we need to hire more people, right? So that's just my 2 cents. I don't know if it's, it just feels like this is a very busy time of the year to start this kind of a process, and it might be more disruptive.
David, one way you might be able to
to-
manage the interim period is if you get to the point in January where we don't have a decision and Mary needs to start working part-time, you could get an office temp on a weekly basis just to do some of the grunt work to cover that. So that's an option, to provide some work for a month.
Yeah, I want to just step back a minute. So to me, the reason to do this, this investment represents 1.5% of our total operations costs. So it's a pretty minor investment for one of our biggest costs. We actually spend more on operations than we receive in on real estate taxes, just to put it in perspective for you. So I don't want to presuppose what the answer is. I think the reason we're hiring Kerry is because he has the experience to look across many areas. And to me, it's not just a cost discussion. It's also an efficiency and effectiveness and a checks and balances discussion. Do we have the right checks and balances in our township? And I'm not comfortable at all saying what I think the answer is, and nor should I think any of us should do that. So we should let the process play out, understand what Kerry has to say and what we learn from Kerry and from other townships, and include the community in some of those decisions, because the community may not want to go to 4 days a week. The community may be happy spending the amount we spend, but we do need to understand how it compares to other townships. That's my 2 cents. And my other thought is that we get started ASAP if Kerry doesn't think it's too disruptive.
And I totally agree with Nancy. We really, and that's what I liked about Carrie's proposal. We need to understand what the residents want, because somebody may be 12 hours a week, somebody could be 18, and the residents could be miserable. And we have residents have a certain expectation. So, Nancy, I agree with you. I mean, I totally agree with you. I think we should start the process. I think I want Carrie to get on it, but I don't want it to be rushed. And I really want to make sure that we bring the residents in, and of course, Joan and Mary and Jeff, and to make sure that we're looking at it holistically and we're doing the right thing from an efficiency, effectiveness, and a cost perspective. I don't see the reason to put it off. I know it's going to be hard, and most of it's going to fall on Joan and Mary. And I just ask for their indulgence as we get through this, but I think it's going to get us to a better place once we get through it.
I agree, Donna. It will give us an understanding of why we do what we do, and this is why we do it. And then, because we don't know right now, we just don't know, and we need that information. So I guess the question is, do we start now, or do we wait like Dave would prefer to the beginning of the year? I think that's the big question. I would prefer to start now. I think Nancy would. You too, Donna. How about you, John? Are you?
Yeah, I think so, and I think we start and see how this thing plays out.
Okay.
I think one thing you shouldn't lose sight of is that the cost of government is an overhead on people,
right?
And it's not something that many people benefit from. So We got to be very careful with spending here. And
Yeah.
when you see other townships working with apparently less, I'd say apparently, because I don't know what their full operation is. I just see
Yeah.
certain aspects of their operation that are different than ours.
Yeah, and Carrie, I would say it would be great if everything ran smoothly and we have an answer by the end of the year. But if you're not satisfied and you need more time, we'll take more time because we want a good, thorough report.
Okay, well, listen, this is what I'll commit to the group.
Okay.
I think that once we, have the paperwork in place, the process will start immediately.
Okay.
We'll keep that process moving expeditiously, and it'll take as long as it takes to get what we believe to be a good work product.
Okay. That sounds fair to me.
Okay, is there any other discussion?
No.
So I'm hearing that we're going to vote now and we're going to proceed. All right, so
Just
all
for
in favor,
budgeting purposes, if we do start this now, as Carrie's said he would, when would the funds be due, Carrie? So I know what year to put this in.
I mean, at the earliest, I would think you would receive invoices would probably be the December bill run.
Okay.
But again, that would not be the whole process.
Carrie?
And again, it probably just depends on how quickly we get through the process.
okay, did you hear it, Joan? Joan?
Can you
I
hear
think Joan heard. All right.
No, I don't think Joan can hear. Can you hear?
him?
Can you hear us, Joan?
Carrie, what was the year? This year or next
Starts in
year?
December. So it's probably going to be split over the 2 years would be my guess.
Split over 2 years, Joan.
It's the 2020,
Oh, okay.
21.
Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay.
So I'm going to vote nay, just based on my point of view that I think this is kind of happening right in the middle of a whole bunch of items. But in principle, I agree, but I'm going to vote nay on this one.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you all, and I'll be talking to everybody very shortly.
Thank you so very much, Carrie. Appreciate it. All right. All right, we'll move on, Donna, to
The next item?
letter. But Donna, can I say something? Okay.
Sure.
About the newsletter, I sent everybody a cover letter that I want to send into PSATs to enter our newsletter in a contest. It's called Civilian Communication Contest. The contest closes the end of October. So I want to try and get this out next week. I have to send 3 copies of the newsletter with 3 cover letters. You all have the cover letter. It's only a couple paragraphs. If there's anything you don't like, please shoot an email. Mary will get the proper cover letter done. We'll get this in the mail. And the other item I want to enter in the contest is our live streaming of our meetings and our YouTube. And I also want to put in there that the meetings are getting indexed, which I think is tremendously helpful. So I'm going to enter that in the contest too. So that'll be another cover letter. The one item I'm not going to enter is our website. And this is on the advice of our webmaster, Dave, because it still needs some tweaking. So I'm hoping we'll get it done by the end of the year, to exactly where we want it. And then we'll enter it next year in the contest. So I hope it seems to me like everybody was okay with that when I mentioned it last month. So you take it away now, Donna. Thank you so very much.
Okay, well, I promised to be short, but I did want to take this occasion to recognize the work that Mary and our previous secretary had done on the newsletter. People have received it. I know I got my copy in October. We've seen that people are reading it because we get the positive response for Nan and her comprehensive plan. And I also, it's interesting, and Nan talked about an email list. And, I'm sorry, that's when we talk about the website. So let me finish that. So the newsletter, like I said, well received, good comments. Congratulations, Mary and Sharon. And I know you have a good process in place because I saw it in the letter that you're going to enter in the contest for how we continue to do this to newsletters a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. So good job. And I hope the residents like it. And please contact the office. Let us know your feedback, because we're always constantly wanting to learn, change, make things better. So we're hoping that we're meeting your needs with this. And the second thing, and Mary has acknowledged this too, is the website. Even though the website isn't perfect, it's much improved. There's a lot of good features on it. So once again, I hope the residents will get out there and look at it, explore it. If you have comments, please contact Mary in the office and give us your feedback. And this is what I was going to say before. There is the ability to be on an email list to get updates or get alerts. You fill out I did it tonight. It takes 2 seconds. You click on the little box, and it's called alerts, and you put your email address in there, and they will send you you tell what you want, and it will send you those kind of alerts. It will give you the information that you're interested in. So once again, well done. I want to hand it over to Dave, because Dave, I know you're doing a lot of work on the website to get it to that next level. I just want to make sure you're recognized, and maybe you have a few comments for the residents.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. So, first off, I have to say that, we're in the middle of the transition. So there's going to be items that you're going to say, where is this? And we're working to get everything back up from the old site. There's particularly a lot of historic data that we just need to bring over. So it's going to get there, but thank you for being patient. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and Donna, you mentioned it, is the e-subscribe function. And when we do our physical mailers for the physical township newsletter, we want to remind people and drive people to sign up for these e-subscribe. And under e-subscribe, this is something where you can select township alerts, township news items, township agendas. Let me see if I'm allowed to share my screen here. Yeah, here we go. So hopefully you can see my screen now. So you can see, this is what the e-subscribe page looks like. You just put in your email, you confirm the email, and then you select what you want to get an update on. And it's pretty simple. Township alerts, these are things like road closures. There'll be a banner up for about a week under urgent alerts for road closures or any emergencies, township news and announcements, township agendas, and township minutes. And so when any one of these things gets updated, you'll get an email that says there's new content and this is the new content. And then you just subscribe, and that's pretty much it. And so we're going to try and remind people as much as we can to do and subscribe to this. I think we have something like 250 residents' emails right now. And so we're going to hopefully start transitioning over to this service because I think it's going to be a lot more useful for folks when they to get timely information. So, and again, this is a pretty easy website to manage. I don't plan on managing it forever. I just like this stuff. So I just took it upon myself to learn about it. And then eventually we'll just transfer it over to folks who are in the office to kind of handle. So yeah, so everything's up here and I'm trying to put things in useful places. So if you see something that's missing or a feature that you're looking for, just let me know and I'll see if I can figure out how to either do it or I'll contact Civic Plus and they can maybe help us get it done. But one thing that I do like is the calendar feature and the meetings and minutes function. So if you go to our Board of Supervisor minutes, all of our minutes will be here. And so let's go to the August minutes. And so not only are the minutes filed here, but also the audio of the video of the meeting. So you can read your minutes if you want to, or you can read or go through the video. And I don't want to play the video. Let's not do that. And then once you get to the video, I just wanted to remind folks that the agenda items are all listed out underneath the video. So you can actually go ahead and just go to write whatever you're interested in. So couple of ways to access information. At the moment, I think we're only going to do that indexing for Board of Supervisors meetings. We also do Planning Commission and stuff like that, but we don't need to. I mean, if people really love the feature, maybe we can go ahead and add that. But right now, I think the focus is just going to be Board of Supervisors meetings. So that's it. I think it's as I've been learning how to use the website, it's pretty user friendly. There's a lot to it, but it's all pretty straightforward. So anyway, thank you for your patience. And again, you can just call the office or email me with any suggestions or things that you'd like to see up on the website. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Dave, I just want to note, you've done a great job getting it to a place where it's, I know we have bumps and whatnot, but we've come light years forward. So I hope people will be patient and understand how much work really everyone has done. Mary, Donna, Dave, Mary, and Sharon in the past. I do want to suggest anyone on the call or anyone who hears this later, if you have a favorite photograph in the township and it's pretty good quality, send it to us. I just love the banner feature and I love bragging about our township. So we'll get that on the banner if there's something that you think really represents our township well.
Yeah, that was actually something that Jeff and I were talking about. We do, Jeff does a good job on the Facebook, updating the information there and having something like a monthly, Friday photo contest or a monthly photo contest, send your pictures in. It's pretty easy to just put it up there. So that might be something fun for us to do.
Live in an incredible place.
All right, that's it. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. We're very, very fortunate to have you and your expertise helping us get through all this. The next item on business, I'm going to be very brief about this because it's about the spotted lanternfly, an update. I spoke with Penn State Cooperative Extension when the weather was warmer. We've had a few cold nights, so things have really changed. They wanted residents to please try and take note of any trees that were heavily infested with the spotted lantern and then be on the lookout for the eggs that were laid. Some of them will be too high up, but in the spring, that's the tree you really need to deal with. And there's a great, Penn State has so much information. I'd really like to encourage residents to go to their website, pictures. I could be on here all night and I'm not going to do that. But anyway, you go to extension.pennstateupsu.edu/spotted lanternflies. There's guides for homeowners, what to do, how to manage your trees, different means you can use to control them. I think why this is so important, we have a lot of vineyards and that's the spotted lanternfly's favorite food. And the amount of damage this insect will do in Pennsylvania, they're estimating to be in the billions. It could really devastate our area, but I think if residents are aware and can jump in and do their part, it will really lessen the severity. So I encourage everyone, please go to the Penn State Extension. We'll get as much information on our website about this as we can. Not much you can do right now, except if you see the eggs, scrape them off. You just need a putty knife or a plastic credit card, and they recommend you put them in a jar with rubbing alcohol in it, some kind of container. That's about all we can do right now until the spring because the adults will die off over our winter. They can't survive our winter. But so between now and March or April, please go to the website and get all the information to help everybody out, to help all of us out. And that's about it. Okay, so now, Dave, I'll move the next business item to you, please. Thank you, everybody.
Sure, thanks, Mary. So now we're going to talk about the Township Secretary position. There's no motion offered. We're simply going to be discussing potential options as we move forward. So I'll open the floor for discussion.
Yeah, David, could you just explain what the current situation is? I mean, I generally hear it, but I don't know exactly what it is related to how Mary's working for us. So if you could just go over that first, that would be helpful.
Well, sure. Maybe Joan, do you want to talk about the situation? Talk about it since you're probably closer to the Or Mary?
Or even Mary.
Mary is been doing a good job trying to fill Sharon's shoes, and she's been working full-time with us, and she will continue to do that until the end of the year. But after January, she wants to work on a part-time basis because of the fact that has retirement income to consider. So we're trying to figure out how to continue to use Mary's service on a part-time basis and still have the office covered as needed for the phones and everything.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
So I don't know, John, if you need more information than that.
No, that's really what
Yeah.
that's what I expect. We're working full time to the end of the year, and then
Yeah.
in the part-time situation. I just want to make sure I understand that that's what it was. So
one of the solutions that I've talked about a little bit is having Mary stay on doing, and I think she can do a lot of the heavy lifting work from home, right? Putting the meeting books together, that kind of thing. And I think, John, you brought this up, is interim for office work, answering the phones, pointing people in the right direction. We might be able to use a service.
Yeah.
And so net, you might have 2 employees, right? But both employees are part-time, and they're part-time with no benefits. So even though net you have 1 additional employee, the hours will be less and the cost of running the office will be lower. So that's how I kind of see it. Again, this is, I'm still sitting at a point of ignorance. I'm not here in the office every day knowing what they do, but that seems like we could do a split like that. I'm looking at Joan and Jeff and I say this, but I don't know if that's what's reasonable, but that seems to me like a split that would make sense.
Yeah, I think the only issue with the part-time or the temporary help is that they can't get involved in anything involved, but they can do the basic grunt work of copying, doing some tasks that you can give them a task and say, go do this for a while. But I think that would work. That's a reasonable approach to fill in the labor gap.
Can I just have clarity? Because I'm fine with whatever temporary arrangement we agree, but in my mind, it's temporary. So we just had the thing with Mr. Vargo, and we've asked him to do a piece of work, and we have to give him time to do that work. And we were very clear that we want an answer quickly, but we don't want him to rush it, so we want a good answer. And so I don't know what he's going to come back with, but say he comes back with a recommendation, and the recommendation is that we need a full-time secretary, then I would want a full-time secretary. So like I said, I don't want to prejudge anything, but I don't want to also make any commitments to anybody. I look at Mary's been wonderful to come in and give us the time where she was able to transition with Sharon, which was invaluable, and she's been doing a great job. And if she could stay full time, maybe that would be where we were at. But I just don't want to commit ourselves to 2 part-time people if that's what Mr. Vargo comes back with and says that we need a full-time position. I think we're just looking, at least I am, maybe I want to get some understanding from the rest of the board that you agree this is a temporary fix until we actually get a recommendation from Mr. Vargo and we decide how we want to move forward. Is that how everybody else sees it?
No, that's really the way I would see it, is if he comes back with a full-time recommendation, then we got to put together an RFQ and then go out and solicit some resumes. So that could take a while. So that's why the interim.
Right. I would like to suggest one thing. So, I would rather not wait until December 31st to find someone who maybe can do phones or filing or whatever. So I would suggest that maybe we start looking now for a part-time person. Now, maybe both part-time people are not going to be around next year. Sorry, Mary O. But you know, we don't know what the outcome will be, but I'd rather not kind of wait until we're in crisis mode to find a part-time person. So I would suggest maybe if, you know, with Joan and Mary Obermuller's help, that we start at least looking to see if we can find someone who could answer phones or, you know, take some of the really basic work off so that we're utilizing Mary O where she's, you know, where her talent really adds a lot of value to the township.
Yeah.
So if I can understand it, so you're saying we would keep Mario full-time and then bring another person on part-time until?
We may not need Mary O full-time. I'm not sure Mary wants to work full-time. She's just been filling in as best she can. So we might want to just play around right now with, you know, maybe Mary can work part-time and maybe we can get someone else in who can help us, and we can, you know, we can just see how that works out on the short term. There's really no downside.
I think you might want to make some inquiries to some of these employment agencies that can provide a person on a weekly basis.
Yeah, they charge a lot.
I'm kind of thinking that
Joan might have ideas. Yeah.
But I would make some inquiries.
We've had some bad experiences with using them.
Well, that doesn't mean you might get a good experience. So I think that's the interim experience we have. I'm not sure that you're going to find a part-time person that's going to stay in here long-term. So you may be.
Well, I mean, I guess the bad experiences might also, is that a result of having that person do the whole job? So, because in my mind, I've got it, you know, in quotes, figured out, as it may, is that you have, you know, Mary working part-time doing the township business, and then you have this person, whoever it is, answering phones and photocopying, right? And so they're not, you know, they're not doing the heavy lifting, high talent work necessarily. They're just someone who can answer a phone and do photocopying and basic stuff. So was the bad experience they were bad at that kind of stuff, or they were bad at just showing up at all?
Well, we had one case where they didn't show up at all. They asked for directions and then the next day never appeared. We had another case where the person worked for several months with us, and then one day we came in and their keys were on the desk and they said they resigned, and then we found out that they hadn't done anything the whole time they were here. So
let's let Joan look into it. And Joan has lots of connections, and, you know, let's not try to solve it for you. We'll let you go down that path, Joan. But the idea is maybe it's better to start now looking at part-time options for clerical things.
Well, can I make a comment? I think we learned a lesson when Sharon left, that we had no coverage, and God bless Mary O for jumping in there, because we would have been so stuck in less than a 2-week period. I kind of think we have to look at what we know. We know we've hired Carrie. It sounds like his report will be the end of December, maybe the end of January. So we need that coverage for the month of January when Mary cannot be full-time with us. So I think if we got somebody part-time right now or next month that Mary could work with, maybe they'll transition into a part-timer starting in 2021 along with Mary, but we got to wait. Carrie will tell us that. But I don't want to be stuck with somebody that doesn't know what the heck they're doing. I do think there's enough people out there that might say, sure, I'll help you out for a couple months. And maybe they don't want a long-term commitment. I think we ought to at least look into that. Yeah. If we can't find that, then we could get a temp that opens mail, answers the phone, makes copies. That's not real difficult, you know. Maybe we could even get somebody from the technical college here, you know, that's a business major.
Mary's been going above and beyond, and I don't know that we should, you know, I think if we can make life easier for Mary and give ourselves more coverage and more options, and like you say, Mary M, more different skills, you know, everybody has different skills. I just don't see a downside to doing that.
And we'll have an answer from Carrie, I would say by the end of January at the latest. Sounds like by the latest. So we're not talking a long period of time where we need some help from Mary.
Right. I totally agree. This is
Does that make sense?
get an answer, and then we have another conversation.
Right.
What is this? How do we fix it? What do we want? And also, and then poor Mary, you're so quiet, but what does Mary want? You know, and what her.
Well, that's the question I was getting ready to ask is that, and I hate to put you on the spot, Mary, but we need some idea what your part-time commitment would be. And that's going to be based on what your retirement income is and other factors. But that's a key element in the decision process is how much you'd be willing to commit part-time if indeed you continue part-time in the next year. So I'm not asking for an answer now because it's a complex question, but it is a key bit of information we need to help us with this decision. So
Either way, we certainly don't want.
You're on mute. She's trying to say something. Let Mary talk. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Mary.
No,
Mary.
we can't hear you. No. No. Oh, poor Mary.
We've all been there.
No.
John's gonna go fix it.
Might be okay now. Nope.
Poor thing.
Might be from Joan's end. Not sure.
I'm gonna miss this when we have to go back to the regular old meetings.
Yeah. Oh, so you let me use your mic? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I'll sanitize it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just didn't put a headset on, so. But I can say, I know that there has been a lot of discussion about whether the work here was worthy of a full-time employee or whether it was just a part-time situation. But coming in here, I did feel very, very overwhelmed, and it made me feel like I needed to have some kind of control. And I created this spreadsheet to help support me to understand what were the steps of things that I needed to do and making sure that I was reaching out to the right people. But it was a really good exercise to kind of outline all the duties of the secretary. And it was way more than what I expected it to be. And, you know, thank God you guys had Sharon for as long as you did. And she's like a walking library, walking right out the door. And that's kind of scary too, as well. So in my mind, I never wanted to come in here and work a full-time job. I'm happy to come and help the township. I do appreciate, you know, the work that everybody else does here now, way more than I did before. And I think, you know, looking at the job itself, I feel like it is a full-time position. Now, I think when Carrie Vargo comes in and he does an evaluation, maybe he can divide that up. There are some bits of the secretarial work that can be put into maybe another secretary's position, and maybe possibly that could go part-time. But, you know, John, you made a comment last week about all the permits that were being done and how much work that Jeff Vogel's had and what all the work that he was putting into it. But I think what people don't understand is, yeah, he's here Tuesday and Thursday, but people are coming in with these permits all the time. So every permit that comes in, if it's not the secretary, it's Jeff Eastburn or it's Jones, somebody's grabbing the paperwork. It has to be logged. You have to make copies. You have to do whatever. If it has to be given out, they're not always given out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're given out on Fridays too. They're given out on all days. So there are things that I think that we can take away from each one of these and give to the secretary to do. But I think when you're talking about some of the meat of like the minutes and project stuff, I think I could handle that. But yeah, I always wanted a part-time position. My husband's fully retired. We planned on traveling and doing other things. And come January, annuities come into play. And I don't want to lose more money than I would, you know, expect to. And I'm willing to give up a little bit of that and help and support part-time, but I don't think I would like to stay here full-time. I want to do things.
Well, Mary, you just need to figure out what suits you and what is the best for you. And then we take that and determine how to use it. So the only other comment I made about the permits, the permit activity we had over this pandemic situation has been unprecedentedly high because people are staying home and are working on their houses. So, I mean, when I look at the list of permits and inspections, it's unprecedented from what I've seen in the years I've been here. So certainly that's probably not going to continue if things calm down and people get back to normal work schedule.
Right.
And the other thing I know Carrie will help us with as well is that, as we've mentioned, people's lives change. People take jobs, they leave jobs. And I don't think our township should ever be solely dependent on one person who knows the job. It's better to have to have someone else who Mary can talk to and work with, who knows a little bit more about the job. It was a miracle that we got Mary and Sharon together for a week. Because otherwise Mary would have come in completely cold. So, and I don't think we can go around saying Sharon should never have left. I mean, Sharon has her own life and she's excited about her job. And the answer isn't don't let anyone ever leave, So
Yeah.
you got to be better about that.
I think you have to recognize that, you got a really small office and lose one person that's a third of your staff. So
That's right.
That's just the nature of managing a small township and a small office that, one person is a big part of the workload.
So can I ask a question? Do we want Joan to go forward with looking for a temporary part-time between now and when Mary is definitely going to be part-time? And then the final conclusion will be after the report from Carrie Vargas?
I vote yes. I don't see a downside to doing that.
Okay. You all right with that, Donna? Yeah, okay. All right, Joan. Okay.
All right, thank you. I'm going to give Joan back her headset.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Sorry for not having my headset on.
Put your speakers by the camera. Were you talking to, not, but.
Did it come on?
No.
On my list, I don't have the preliminary budget discussion, but I thought that was going to be our last discussion. Am I correct?
No, we have one more. We
You're
have
looking
the
at
Abel
the,
subdivision.
You're looking at the motion list. You got to look at the agenda. That is the last item.
We got the
I have
Abel
an old one.
subdivision.
Oh, you want to do that, Dave?
And that's John. I can do it.
John, do you have it in front of you? It'll be on a new list of
have the
motions.
old
If
list.
not, David can take it.
Yeah, it's not. I can take it if you don't mind, John. Not a big deal. I make a motion that the Board of Supervisors accept the extension of the Abel subdivision until April 22nd, 2021. Board of Supervisors meeting. Seconded by?
I
Second it.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
I heard John first. He hit the buzzer first.
That's good. That's
So is there any discussion on this?
Well, the only thing is that this particular subdivision has been around for a long, long time, and whether Bernie actually does it or not, I don't know. But if he lets it lapse, he loses a whole lot of money if he ever does it. So it never seems to be any real problem for us to just make a motion once in a while to renew it. And that's what we've been doing for years and years.
Okay.
So I don't think there's any downside for the township. So.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments on this? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 5-0.
All right. Start the discussion on the budget.
I don't know how you want to do it, Mary. I have
You can
some
start.
general comments. Is that all right? I have, first of all, I want to thank Joan. I think, Joan, you do an excellent job every year getting us prepared for this. This is a multi-step process. Tonight's our first night to look at it. We give feedback to Joan. She brings it to us again in November, and then that's where we really have to come to the point where we agree to it so it can be advertised, so we can finalize it by the end of the year. But at least it offers us that opportunity to talk about it today. I have some general comments, just areas that I picked up on. I'm sure other people have areas that they pick up on. So I have 4 areas, and I'll promise to be as brief as I can, and we can decide how we want to talk about it. So my first point is that I just want people, this is just a note, to note that in the general fund, that on a yearly basis, we're transferring $60,000 to the emergency fund. And that's because the tax dollars that are allotted to the emergency fund are not enough to cover what our commitments are for the emergency fund. And I'm not, we need to do that. So we have to make sure we have ambulances and we have EMTs. So it's not that I want to cut anything. I just want people to be aware that our current tax allotment doesn't provide enough money for emergency services. So it's an essential item that we take out of the general fund. And this is something that will likely to increase year on year. So just a FYI. The second FYI is that also out of the general fund, we take $62,000 and put into the open space fund. And that's done because, once again, the money in the open space fund by itself, we have a certain amount of our tax dollars allotted to open space, isn't enough to cover what we need in terms of paying for the open space. So it's just, like I said, an FYI. The second item is the library, and we had the directors night with us telling us what's going on in the library and the work that they're doing. And I just want folks to realize that the current amount of money allocated for 2021 is $21,750, which is the same amount of money that we've allocated in the past years. And I've talked to Joan about this because I know that the library has asked for some additional money. And Joan said that this number, the $21,750, is based on the Franklin Township population on the last census. And my suggestion to the group, and if you decide to agree or not, is that we should wait till we get the census numbers from the 2020 census, and we won't get that until sometime next year, before we hike up or lower our allocation, depending on what the number of people there are in the township. So I would recommend that we stick with the $21,750 based on the population of Franklin Township as we know it today. So that's my second point. My third point has to do with the Park and Recreation Fund, and I'll be quick on it. If you look at the Park and Recreation Fund, we have a great PRO group now. There's not a whole lot of money in that fund. Right now, we're like $48,000 have been allocated to maintenance activities, and those are all the activities that we're talking about. And this is not even counting the volunteer work, but this is mowing trails. This is maintaining the baseball fields. And I can give you the layout, or Joe can give you the layout. We spent $48,000 on maintenance work. And that only allows us $11,000 to do any kind of parkland improvements. And we've already talked about the tennis courts. We talked there's a fountain, a water fountain that needs to be repaired. So I think as we talk about the budget, we really need to look at the Park and Recreation Fund and decide, do we need to put more money in that account because it's very limited what's there? Do we need to do less maintenance work, or are we happy with the level of maintenance work? Do we want to maybe take some money out of the capital fund or out of the general fund, or look at the tennis courts as a capital project and have money allocated that way? Just those are the things I think we should talk about. But I see the Park and Recreation Fund to be it's limited in what can be done. And then the fourth item, and I promise this will be it. In the capital fund, we have $20,000 allocated to work on the township site, and I just think we should talk about that. Is that what is that for? And right now, it's just for engineering. It's not for any actual physical change to it. Is that enough money? Do we want more money? What do we see work on the township site? How do we see that progressing? So I can take them one at a time, but those are the 4 items that I picked out, Mary.
Donna, there's one thing you mentioned right at the beginning, which is the amount of money we put in there for the fire and ambulance. And we have to make up the difference because the tax rate that puts money in there doesn't provide enough. And some years ago, we tried to adjust that rate so that we would put more, so we would indicate to taxpayers how much we're actually putting in there. And we did that, but we had to change. We found out we couldn't change it. Joan, you may speak to that. We changed that ratio one time, and somebody came back and said we couldn't do that, and we had to change it back. So
We had to do it by, I think it's referendum. Do you know, Mark, if that's the correct process? We can't just, 0.5 mils is the max that we could do without.
A referendum.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was correct. It was a referendum situation. Correct.
Okay.
So what are the chances of a referendum passing to increase? Is this to increase taxes, right? Is that what you're saying?
it wouldn't increase taxes. It would just change the allocation. It probably isn't even worth the effort. We just thought it would be a neat bookkeeping thing to change the ratio, and found out we couldn't do it. So we probably just need to stay with the method we're using right now, is to transfer the appropriate amount out of the general fund into the emergency service fund every year. I think the other one you touched on was the park fund. And I know we had paid off the park loan, I think in 2019, the $750,000 loan. So that loan service was about $56,000 a year. So we allocated $41,000 of that to pay the Stolfus open space loan, and the remaining $12,000 was supposed to go into the park fund. I don't know whether that did or not.
No.
No, my understanding, soda went in.
The park fund was originally funded by 0.27 mils. When the loan was paid off, we reduced the park amount to 0.20 mils, and the 0.07 went into the general fund, which amounts to approximately $20,000. That's the way that was done.
a decision by the previous board. So Joan, I have some questions about the park maintenance. Now, in 2019, you had $64,930, and then in 20, you moved it to $48,000. First, why? And second, why would you split out that mowing? Why not just put all the mowing together so that we can make decisions about mowing across everything? It doesn't make sense to me to split that out. And I'm just going to keep going. I also don't know why we're still $8,600 under salary for the park. I feel that should go towards, unless we're paying someone $8,600 a year, that should just go under salaries. And finally, we're going to receive $18K in tax credits from the cell phone tower. Early on, that should have been put to the park. I think a previous board maybe took it out. And my comment is, I think the park is in pretty bad shape. I don't think anyone's done anything on it until the top lot and the bathrooms were done last year. And the tennis courts, you can see how much people use this thing. I'm not even remotely interested in creating pickleball courts until our tennis courts are taken care of. Our parking lot looks pretty bad. And I think we really need to invest in our community. We just heard about the comp plan, how much it means to people. I think it's time to belly up and make some investments in this park and in our parks in general, in our open space.
So when you,
when
we, hold on, there's just one comment on that. So I'm getting a lot of echo here. How we allocate these items, sort of like fixing the tennis court or fixing the upper parking lot, do we need to have that line itemed out as a park expense, like so the road going into Crossland Park and the parking lot, right? That's something that cannot be in the maintenance budget for our roads, right? Because it is a road that goes into Crossland Park. So I guess my question is, do we get bogged down in where do we put the expense, right? So if we do have whatever, $48,000 in parks, well, we can't do the resurfacing on the parking lot because that money is now in the roads and we don't consider the road going into Crossland Park a road. You understand what my question is? I'm just a little confused about how we bookkeep.
I think we have been funding the park improvements through the general fund because there was nothing left in it. And that may be fine, but I think what ends up happening is if a board doesn't believe in the park, then they can easily just ignore improvements. I do agree road work should be part of the road program, but other improvements tend to not get the investment that the community wants and that was originally promised when that cell phone tower went up. So that's my concern.
Well, the cell phone, let me give you a little history on the cell phone tower. The cell phone, I don't know how that ended up in the park fund, but it's not really related to the park. It just happens to be near it.
It's in the
it gave us some flexibility to put that cell phone tower money into the general fund and then transfer money as required from the general fund into the park fund. So I think the right thing to do is to develop some scopes of work for projects that you want to do in the park, get some estimates for it, and then put that money in there by transferring it in. But I don't agree with putting that cell phone tower money back in there. It's unrelated to the park other than it's near it. I'm not opposed to funding the park projects, but I think you got to have a scope of work and a plan. You just don't dump money in there and start spending it.
John, the cell phone tower wouldn't exist without the park. That was how it came about. So you can't say it has no correlation to the park.
It still doesn't belong in the park. It's general fund money that the township gets, and we need to be able
to the residents. The residents were given that as a result of having a cell phone tower in their park.
I don't agree with that at all. I think that's a wrong-headed approach to do that.
John, you unilaterally removed that money without community involvement. So I don't know that that was the right idea. I hear your point.
I believe it's exactly the right idea. That's why the board did it. You can undo it, but I don't agree with it.
John, I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, and I'm not necessarily against it, but I think we should be very transparent with the public. And I think the public should know what investments we're committing to make in the park. And it shouldn't be just kind of up to a few people on the board. I think it's an important component for the public to be aware of.
Right, but the bottom line is we need more money. Does it really matter where it comes from?
Can I address some of that, please?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. First of all, as Dave mentioned, the road can be considered part of, I feel can be considered part of our road program. For example, when we plow snow, you know, the guys plow the snow in the park. I don't take that out of the park fund. It just comes out of the snow removal. So it's very, it makes a lot of sense that we would say if we repave that road or whatever we have to do with it, that can come out of the road maintenance. The other issue is the $8,600 that's here for salary. That is for John Hocking. And in fact, Dave and I talked about this last Friday, that I had suggested moving that to the general fund so that all the salaries are in one place instead of me paying him and then having the park reimburse the general fund and going back and forth like that. So if we move that out of the park, that's going to bring that up to well over $9,000 when you take it into consideration property tax or payroll taxes. Now the other item, if you look at this, I have $9,000 in here for fee and lieu. And that's what would come from Lexington Pointe when they start building houses. Now, this again is my crystal ball. How good it is this year, I don't know, but I budgeted for 5 new houses. So that's where the $9,000 comes from. But if they do get building houses and move along, that could be higher. But if we take the salary out for John Hocking, that does give the park another $9,000, almost $10,000 to work with. And if
plus 11,000 that's already there, right? So that would give him 21,000.
Well, again, though, the 9,000 for the fee and lieu, that's an if. I mean, I hope we're going to get it.
Got the 9,000 from John Hocking. So the way I understand what you're saying, you would pay John's salary out of the general fund. That would release additional $9,000 that we could put towards something else in the park fund, right? That's what you're telling me?
Yes. Yes.
Right, so you would add that 9,000 to the 11,000 for parkland improvements. That would get us up to 20,000 for that, right?
Yes.
And then
The pro committee
what we
will
could
come, sorry,
as a
Donna.
board, we could consider the tennis courts being a capital project, and that then could be done outside of the park budget, and that might give the park, at least the PRO, a chance to do something. So I can summarize what we just talked about to see if there's something people could buy. So if you're looking at your budget at Park and Recreation Fund, we would take John Hawkins, whatever's there for salaries. We would take that. It's $8,600. That would actually, that line would go away, but that $8,600 as part of an expense would now be incorporated into line 473, which currently is $11,000. So that would give us close to $20,000 for parkland improvements. And then we could agree, I don't know if we do it this meeting or we do it at another meeting, that whatever the tennis court project is, and that's going to be around $15K, but whatever they come in with a number, that we could make that a capital project. It would not be taken out of the Park and Recreation Fund, but would come out of the capital project fund.
That's how I see something like that. It's that's something you can't. That's a major use item, and that seems like a capital expense, not like a mowing type project. So I agree.
And we need to do it. We have put it off year after year.
Yeah, it's time. So Joan, I have a question. When we went from maintenance of 64K to 48K, was that because we've taken a different approach to mowing, or what happened there?
Nancy, well, I'd have to look back and if I could get in my computer here, I could see what the expenses were. I can
That's
do that
okay.
report.
If you can just come back later, we don't.
Yeah,
need
and give you that. Do you remember if there was something major in 19, Jeff, that we did? There had to be something there.
And then I would just ask you to think about whether it's better just to put all mowing together rather than splitting it out, because it's a little bit, in some ways it is together. We bid it out together, and we can make better decisions maybe if we just look at the cost in total, but that's up to you to look at.
Well, the mowing that's here though is actually bid out for the park and the office. It's for your your normal lawn maintenance or mowing.
Also, that's separate from other mowing. Other companies, two different companies do it?
No, Jim got that bid, so he does that work, but it's for mowing here. The contract is for mowing here and for mowing the fields at the park. Now, some of the other mowing that we've started to do this year is like mowing the Ford Farm Trail and some of the trail work. Okay, so that's where.
Is there a reason not to just look at them all together in one budget item?
Well, that kind of work there that's not bid out to do the trails or something, because you never know when you're going to have to go in there. That's maintenance. And when you have the different funds, you want to try and keep all the expenses for each fund where it belongs. I mean, that's the purpose of having them. So all the expenses for the park and for the open space maintenance, you do any of the preserves or anything, should come from this. And if the funding's not enough, then we have to figure out, what we need to do. But I just feel it should be separate. That's, my opinion is.
I agree, Joan. I think it should too. And it's not a minor number. It's a pretty significant number. And as you said, I think, Nancy, you made this comment for transparency to the residents. It costs a lot of money just to keep things going. It's important. People need it. We need to do it. We need to keep our trails open, but it's not minor. And I think it's good that they can see that that's what the cost is associated.
Nancy, I'll just give you a little bit of a story. I called, I'm not going to mention a name, but one of the surrounding townships, and I was trying to do a comparison. And I was asking them, okay, what do you budget in your general fund? And I was given that information. I said, okay, what do you budget in, naming the other funds? And they said, oh, we don't worry about those. And I just feel you're doing a disservice to the public. I mean, I'm proud of the fact that when they pick up this treasurer's report or the budget, I mean, they can look and see where every penny goes. They know where their money went or is going, that it's not hidden somewhere. It's not lumped together somewhere. And I just feel that's a better way of doing the accounting.
So I guess we'll wait for the pro group to, it sounds like, tennis courts might come out of capital, paving might come out of the roads, and maybe we'll just ask the pro group to come back. And I know, Paul, you're still on the call, I think, to tell us what they think they need this year to maybe do some improvements to the park that have been long needed.
Yep, we've got a list of projects and we've prioritized, and we'll bring our top priorities forward.
And I think, Paul, it's good that you are on the line, because I think you've been here before, so you know what the situation is. There's not a lot of money available, but there is some money available, and that would help the team. I know you're doing a lot of grants and trying to get help elsewhere, but give them a sense of how big the box is and what kind of projects we could support.
Okay, I have a question. Joan, it's probably for you. We're going to spend $48,000 on maintenance in the park, and that will cover fertilizing, mowing, the entire park, plus the office here.
No, that's paid out of the general.
Oh, the office is different.
Yes.
And then, so that's an addition. How about Ford Farm? We're mowing that.
That's in here.
That's
That comes out of the park. All the expenses for the park and preserves are
in that 48,000.
Come out of this fund.
$48,000.
Yes.
Okay, so the only additional is mowing the office here.
That's in the general fund. That's ground maintenance in the general fund.
General ground maintenance. Okay.
Mary, just for you to know, Banffshire is included with $4,000 on Banffshire. Crossing Park was $30,000. Ford Farm was $6,200 mowing. There's the clean corn crib. There's like $2,000 for that. Work done on Goodwin and work done on the Keene Trail. That's all part of that $45,000 that was spent in 2020 and projected to be spent again in 2021.
And that comes out of the general
Park and Rec.
Okay, park.
If you can just remember, anything that has to do with the park or any of the preserves or the open space,
Okay.
unless it's a capital expenditure that we have taken some of that out of the capital account, okay? But the expenses come out of the Park and Rec fund.
Okay, but it still leaves $11,000 for improvements. And if we pull out John Hawking's money, now we're up to $20,000 for park improvements.
That's right. Which
that the pro committee could have. Yeah, you like that number, Paul?
Yeah, I'm reasonable. That sounds great. I mean, we've got projects that total way over that, but we couldn't do all of them anyway if you gave us the money. So I'm okay with that. But I think Donna gave a great example of just patching the tennis courts. That is not repaving the tennis court. That is not recoating the tennis court. Just patching it is $15,000. So we could blow our whole budget on one item, right?
Yeah, that's why we want capital.
Separate though, Paul. That's
I know. That's why I'm concurring that one item could blow us out of the water. So 20,000 is not a lot for doing these projects.
In general, but we're saying that's going to be covered from a different budget.
Yeah, I understand. And I appreciate that. And the same with the taking care of the parking lot. I mean, you can't even see where the painted lines are in the parking spaces anymore. It's been that long.
Right.
And with the bathrooms and the tot lot, it's going to be a nice, and the Hunters just painted everything. It should look good. We should be proud of this park. So I'm excited for it to kind of take a step up.
And the healing garden in the spring, that's all.
Right.
I know John's going to hate me for saying this, Paul, but I'm going to say it anyways. If you guys get together as a PRO and you decide there's a project that you need and it blows the budget, you can still come to us. I mean, I'm not making any promises, but just like the tennis courts, if it's something that we're looking at saying, we got to do this thing, or it's really something that's important, I think you got to bring it to us, and we got to look at it and say, is this something we want to take from a capital budget?
Yeah, like maybe pickleball courts. Maybe that's important to people, and we should talk about it.
Right.
That's up to you guys to
I don't know. I know you're not a kind of fearful person, but I just would think that you kind of see 20 grand would be what we're working with. But if there's something like, and I'll use tennis courts as an example, it has to get done. It's going to blow the budget, but we got to do it. then I think you bring it to us and we say, is it something that, how important is it to the township? Do we take it out of the capital budget?
Okay.
Well, I think too, we have to remember in the times we're living in, Mary O has told me, residents are calling all the time about how much they appreciate our parks and preserves. It's a way for them to not go crazy. So it's important. Okay.
So that's the parks. I don't know if you want to talk about the library or you want to talk about something else, but Joan, maybe you should tell us what you need feedback on, because you got to take our comments and put it into a new budget for November.
Well, Donna, I agree about the library. Wait till the census. I think we're not talking a lot, a little over $1,000. It's not even $1,200 more that they're asking for, but we can wait for the census and see if we
That's
can
what we
go
have
over there.
our numbers.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk about the township project? So like I said, we have 20,000, or Joan put $20,000 in there to do some engineering work on the the salt shed wall, and just to get an idea of what to do in that back room. I mean, I can look at it both ways. One is that, should we think about spending more? I want to spend at least that much, but is that enough progress to make in 2021? I don't know how people feel about that.
I think the scope of work isn't clear, but the idea is that we'd like to take that salt bin and convert that into storage area so we can get some file cabinets out of the meeting room. That's been the long-term goal, is to get all those file cabinets out of the meeting room. And I always looked at that as unheated and conditioned space, much the way the current space is. We had some issues when we tried to do that with the architect. Joan, you remember we had Chuck Phillips come in there and he quoted all kinds of ADA requirements and air conditioning and heating and all, and that really runs the cost up. I was just looking at some finished space that's ventilated to put those file cabinets in. So we need to work on the scope of work as to what we're allowed to do, and it'll probably take an architect to make sure we don't step in any holes here with code requirements. So we already had that issue once before, so we need to be careful with it. But I think you need to put some money in there, enough to engage him to engage an architect to define what you can do there to meet the objective of just storage space.
Well, yesterday, Jeff and I met with Tim Seipel, who has done the bathrooms here, the bathrooms at the park. He did the front porch.
Yep.
He's done a lot of work for us, and told him what we wanted to do out there with the old salt shed. So he's going to do some measuring and just give us some ideas of what it would be, just to enclose it, so we have somewhere to start with, and then we can talk about what we want to do on the inside, how we want to, if anything, finish the inside. I mean, John, you talk about an unheated space, but when you have to go out there and file, it gets cold. You don't want to have to put your coat on to go out there, So I'm not saying it's got to be 72 degrees, but I mean, you might have to do some type of conditioning there. But anyway, Tim's going to see what he can come up with, and what I budgeted for 2021 is, again, some engineering services if we need them, and some design services if we need them. And then should we want to proceed with anything towards completing or doing work there, that can come out of the capital projects amount that's there. So, I mean, we do have money, that money is to be divvied up however you want to spend it. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask that, Jen. So we don't have to allocate it today or
No.
before the end of the year, but it would be helpful to allocate the $20K so we can do the architectural work and design work, and then that will give us an idea of a scope, and then we come back as a board and talk about is there any additional work we want to do in 2021, depending on what money is, what we have in the fund.
Just
That makes
amplifying the
sense.
fact we need more input than Tim Seifel. Certainly, he's done some really good work for us at some really good prices, but he's not an architect and he doesn't know all the code requirements. So somehow we got to get that input into the process to make sure that what we do is going to be legal.
Well, with that much money, we have to do multiple bids anyhow. So we're gonna have to look at a number of people.
Yeah.
Well, when we do the construction, yes.
But we have I mean, do we have agreement from the, I don't know if we voted, we just kind of nod heads, but we're okay with the 20K allocated. Is that in the capital fund? Is that okay with everybody?
I'm okay with the money so long as we multi-bid.
Oh, yeah, I think this is still preliminary. We're not even ready to, we don't even know what we're making yet, so. Okay, so I'm not hearing any pushback.
No.
Those are my comments. I appreciate you guys addressing them. I'll turn it over to whoever else has comments on the budget.
None.
I guess just a quick question, Joan. When does the Stolzfus property, what year is it the last payment?
I made the second one this year, so we have 3 more years to go.
3 more years, okay.
It started at 19, so add 5 to that. And that's we have.
Okay.
The only other information that I need from the board, and that's usually done in an exec session, is if there's any cost of living raises or anything like that, because I have to take that into consideration. And in the past, we've always met in executive session to discuss that.
All right, so we'll probably have to do that in a November meeting when we polish up the budget, because in the November meeting, essentially, we got to come out of that meeting with a budget that we can advertise. And then once we advertise it, then it would be adopted in December. Now, in that period, you can't do much with the budget. Some minor tweaking is allowed, but no major changes. So between now and the next board meeting, we got to come up with a budget that we're all satisfied with.
And I'm hoping that we can agree on some kind of an increase. But we don't need to talk about it today. But I would allow some, and I think you've done that, Joan. You've allowed some percentage increase in there for the salaries. If the board has to agree to it, and we can adjust it in November. But I wouldn't want to have no increase in there and then have us decide on an increase. I would hope that we could.
Or we can have an exec session at any time you want, since we do it virtually anyway, and then you just announce it at the next meeting.
That's true. One thing you probably ought to do with the secretary position, since we're not going to know in any short term what we're going to do, we had a budget a full-time position.
I did.
For that, and then that's just unfortunate. Well, that's the only way to do it, I think, and have a reasonable budget.
I did, and if we don't use it all, we don't use it all. But that's what I thought I needed to do.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions, or?
I'm satisfied with the way it's laid out right now, and the changes we talked about are fine. I think the park, we probably ought, if we could be a little more focused on the projects and get estimates, I think that we'd feel more comfortable about the money you're putting in there, because you may not be putting enough in there.
Oh, no, Paul heard that. I think he knows. He'll bring it back to the group.
So, this tennis court thing is something that we've been talking about it a long time. And I think now's the time to seriously engage it, because we have done some major improvements down there. We put a lot of money into that tot lot, which was about 15 grand. And then we did the bathrooms, and the tennis courts are kind of next up in the queue from my standpoint, but certainly the park committee can refine that. But I think we ought to put in there what we need to get these tennis courts up to snuff.
So,
a lot of people.
You hearing that, Paul?
I am, and I want to encourage each of you to go down there between now and the next meeting and look at the courts. You have to walk on them because you can't really see it from outside the fence. And especially note the large crack between the two courts. It hides under the fence between the two courts, and it looks like something you see in California where the earth opened up.
Yeah, there's a big crack there that that was supposed to be fixed, and there was something we're going to do with the fence, and I don't remember what that was.
Yeah, your old plan was to take the fence down. That would be quite an expense, and then make the courts less appealing, I think, to have no fence in the middle.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I remember that was a discussion, but I didn't see at that point the value of the fencing. But Certainly the thing ought to be resurfaced appropriately so that it looks new.
I think the value of the fencing is to keep the game separate. If you have a really top-notch set of players on one side and a bunch of kids playing on the other side, you don't want balls going across between them. I mean,
Yeah.
it happens. Courts are like that, but I think it's the preference is to have a dividing fence.
Trust me, if you're playing with my granddaughter, you want the fencing. You're going to spend all day chasing those balls.
Yeah, the tennis courts are next up in the queue. We've been poking at the park for years, and that's, in my mind, the next item. So you probably want to
So Paul, give us, when you work with your team, give us options.
Yep, that's Jeff and I have been working with different vendors. We've met 2 vendors out at the park in the last 10 days to get pricing, and we get one price to patch and one price to totally recoat.
Yeah, I think we're looking at you have to give us prices, but I think you're hearing that we acknowledge that it's a mess and that it may not be a patch job. It may be that you want to get it done.
Yeah, well, we'll see what kind of numbers we come up with, and then we'll present both to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah, we would need these numbers.
Grant for that, for tennis court?
Yeah, there are parks grants, but it's usually for improvements, and this would be considered a maintenance item, so I doubt you'd score well.
I think we need something by the next board meeting. So I hate to put pressure on you, but to get it in the budget, it'd have to go in November.
Ideally, 3 quotes.
Well, I think you come up with a high spot and put something in there.
Yeah, we're not asking to award the work, Nancy. We just want to know what's a reasonable budget.
Okay.
That's exactly right, because you won't get a quote until you actually put up an RFQ. So you need to do enough scope development to put a reasonable number on it so you can kind of hit it when you actually get your quotes.
And it's coming out of the capital budget, so I don't think we actually.
That's right. You don't have to.
Joe knows how that works. Don't we we take out what we need, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, give us some numbers, but I think the fact that we've made the agreement tonight. Now we didn't vote on it, but we agreed in principle that it would become a capital project, just like when we redo a road. So I think it's that acknowledgement is what we need, because it will sit in the capital fund. Doesn't necessarily have to have a line on it that says tennis court. It will sit in that fund, and then when we're ready to do the tennis courts, when it's time, we take that money out. You know, after we do the bidding process and all that we have to do. But I don't think we have to actually have a line item and have all that numbers totally agreed. It's just we've agreed in principle. It's not in the park budget. It's coming out of capital projects. That's the big agreement.
All right. Good. All right.
All right, well, it's 10 o'clock, Mary, so we'll get you to bed.
Okay, are there any comments from the public? Okay, if there are no comment, it's 9:56. We'll call this meeting to end.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.